This is 5 Sports Extra, bringing you more ways to listen to your favourite sporting events on BBC Sounds.
Ball. Oh, edge. Caught behind.
Just download the BBC Sounds app and click on 5 Sports Extra, Sports Extra 2 or Sports Extra 3 to never miss a moment from the world's greatest sporting events.
They go over, it's a try.
More live sport.
Pure live sport. Listen on BBC Sounds.
Never miss a moment from the biggest sporting events on BBC Sounds.
Drop shot. Winner.
From the WSL, the Super League, the IPL, tennis majors, and much more.
Nice one around the corner. Beautifully worked try from Wigan.
Bringing you.
Looking forward to that one. It's football for the rest of the night here on 5 Sports Extra. We've got Liverpool versus Brighton coming up at 7:45. We're going to start off, though, in the FA Cup fourth round. Aston Villa versus Newcastle and Mike Minay.
Yes, welcome to Villa Park. There's a slight chill in the air, as you would expect, but largely the clouds have parted, clear skies above this great stadium in the West Midlands. Two famous teams in English football, a famous cup competition. It's kind of all mixed for the perfect night, really, hopefully between Aston Villa and Newcastle United, two former winners, in fact, two teams that met each other in a final from the early 1900s as well. Alongside me here is the former Villa player, 5 times winner of the Scottish Cup as well, Rachel Coursey. Good evening to you. Looking forward to this one, I think.
I am, yes. Good evening, Mike. I think it's probably one of the ties this weekend that a lot of people will turn their attention to. I think two teams that, you know, slightly different places in the league table, but two teams that when they're on their day, very, very capable of beating most teams. So potentially tonight we're hoping we're going to get a great one.
We'll look at it in a bit more detail later on. Aston Villa make 8 changes yet still look strong. Newcastle make 7 changes yet still look strong. It's really kind of hard to pick who wants this more or who's leaning to giving the FA Cup a real good go this season.
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of this competition, because you know, you ask different fans and you'll get different reactions, because I think there's always that little element of protection of you're in European competitions, and we all are now understanding more and more about managing load, rotation of players. Both these squads have a lot of quality to be able to change players in and out. It's slightly, you know, likes of Dan Burns, sometimes he plays left back, can play left centre back. Lewis Hall, I think, has been one of those players that I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing this season when he plays. Brilliant attacking football. And then equally for Villa, they've got a lot of quality. I think Barkley started a season, we didn't see a lot of him, obviously, a couple of games where he wasn't in the squad. He's back, he looks fresh, fit, and getting a little more opportunity. And I think again it'll come down to two systems that will almost go, you know, toe to toe, and likely we'll be looking at how can the wide players impact the game, and in and around the penalty box who can get those really clear cut chances.
Interesting, you're talking about how the sides are having to manage the workload. They're managing now, particularly both of these, a little bit of an injury list where they've got to manage who plays where. Kieran Trippier's Newcastle's only real available right back. You've got Lewis Hall playing at left back, tipped for England maybe in the summer. You look at Aston Villa in the same position. They have to play Lamar Bogard there because of the injury to Matty Cash. They brought in Douglas Luiz in January because they've got a midfield that's been ripped apart with injuries, the likes of John McGinn and Yuri Tillemans, just two of the names that are missing for Aston Villa. So it is that fine balance, given how successful both of these sides have been this season in terms of having to manage the Premier League, having to manage the FA Cup, now having to manage Europe as they are, that we're now starting to see perhaps the effects of that.
You are, and of course it's extremely disappointing and frustrating for those players that pick up injuries, and it's an inevitable part of the game, but with that it creates opportunity for others. And when you're those players, you know, you got to just take those moments. And I think, you know, the likes of Douglas Luiz, that was a very shrewd signing, because it's very difficult to sign players in January when you're in the midst of games. You know, that's a window that exists whilst the season does not stop. You don't skip a beat. There's games all the time, and you've got to try and bring in players. And he's the sort of person that he knows how Unai Emery works. So there's a little bit of a safety net there. Of course, Juventus and Forest for himself didn't probably work out how he would have liked in terms of game minutes and things like that. But he's a player he knows Emery knows him, knows how to get the best of him. I think he played amazingly well under him in a number of really important games when they've had the success. So yeah, again, it's going to be about who turns up today and who can have that little moment of magic.
Well, both of these sides are tasting success, as we've mentioned. Newcastle, of course, had the League Cup last year. Aston Villa enjoying their third successive season in Europe. But, as we've touched on, if Villa, for example, want to lift the FA Cup for the first time since 1957, they are going to have to do it without some of their key players. Here's the manager, Unai Emery.
Now we don't have, I don't have another issue different than before I had in another moments or another countries, another clubs, or even here in Aston Villa. And another things as well they have. This problem with players being injured. After the transfer window finishing and with some change we did, and the players, they are injured, we are working with different possibilities. And Lamar Bogard, for example, is a very good possibility, and getting good performance with us progressively. We have enough players to replace as a midfielder, to replace as well fullback Andres and Matty Cash with the player we have. And 2 months ago we were without Tyrone Mings and Pau Torres, and Lindelof played fantastic, so much in a row, subs of then. This is our work. This is something making me more intense in my focus each match with the possibility we can have and to get the performance as soon as possible. And the players, they are ready to play, and they are always opening their mind to try to help us in different positions, being versatile.
The impression I get, certainly from both of these sides, Aston Villa and Newcastle, is the desperation to win a trophy. I know for Newcastle it happened last year in the League Cup, but they really want the FA Cup. For Villa, it would just be about winning a major trophy. And we know that Unai Emery has had such success in Europe, that the record winner of the Europa League 5 times as a manager, Rachel Corsie. How does he take that success but bring it domestically to Aston Villa?
Yeah, that's very difficult, because obviously we know how difficult it is to win the Premier League, which is obviously one of those competitions. The FA Cup is one of these historical, incredible tournaments where, again, you look at, yes, both these clubs have won it before, but even for the top clubs that are consistently, the likes of Manchester City, it's not a given for them that they reach the final of these competitions. It's that special tournament, and it is difficult to sort of translate that. I think Unai Emery's record in Europe is incredible, and that understandably this season also has left an element of optimism. Obviously going really strongly in the UEFA Europa Cup, and I think that's something the fans as well would think that's a massive opportunity for a trophy as well here. So there's a hesitancy to be very confident about these things, as you can understand, because you don't want to fall flat on your face. But Villa, being in these competitions at this point in the season, they're very well placed, and of course their league form has been excellent, deserves huge credit.
That has only, when we say it's tailed off in recent weeks, very slightly. The title talk's gone a little bit from Aston Villa. For both, again, because they're so similar in how they're building their seasons and what they're trying to achieve, Aston Villa and Newcastle. Does something have to give? Do they have to concede? Perhaps take Newcastle, for example, and say, OK, we won't go for the top 4 because we'll give the FA Cup a real go. For Aston Villa, will it be, well, we really want the Europa League, therefore we concede perhaps what we're doing in the Premier League, for example?
I just think I've never been involved in an environment where that's ever been something that you would consciously concede. It may be a factor in terms of some of the decision making that's made by coach and staff off the pitch, in terms of if you end up in difficult positions around choosing to play or start certain players when you've got a 3-game week, as an example. That maybe becomes a factor then. But to me, it's about, you go game at a time pretty much as a player, and you want to be in every competition and you want to win every single game. And that's why we talk about now having that strong squad, because that enables you to have the players that when you do need to, allow someone a bit more rest or manage the minutes, or someone picks up a niggle, you got to be in a position where you don't skip a beat and you can almost put in someone just about like for like. And both these teams, I think, have done really well. Naturally, the longer you stay in more competitions, the more games you have, and that quite clearly then makes it more difficult because you get less rest days, less training time, less recovery, and so forth. But for both teams, they're in a position at this stage in the season where silverware is still an option, and that's a good place to be.
So we've touched on, for example, within that, the importance of Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa. Let's flip things around to the Newcastle side of things. They brought in 6 players in the summer. Eddie Howe has been speaking about how they are handling their newbies into the squad.
Yeah, I think the word patience is an understanding that they're rarely sort of accepted, I think, in I don't know, football management, or when you're talking about your team, because people want sort of clarity on where you are. They want to know sort of whether you're good or bad, and in the middle isn't accepted. But I think for me, we were well aware going into this season it was going to be different for us because of everything that happened in the summer. As you say, we hadn't recruited in so many windows, and then suddenly we recruit 6 players. That's very, very different to how we had been working historically, apart from our first window. And with that becomes that change. Then we'd been so used to working with the same group of players, working one way, but a lot of those players, or some of those players, had left. And then we go into a new season with no pre-season and no training time with them. So I think that's very difficult. And it has ended up being inconsistent and a little bit up and down. Don't get me wrong, I think we could have done better, and that there's certainly things that we can improve. But I think longer term we'd be better for it if we can work through this season and this period and find, I think the biggest thing is find a clear identity and a clear way of playing, and we can see sort of what the future looks like with this team, and if it's positive, that could be a great thing. So I think we have a duty to try and do that. All we ask from everybody on the outside is that there is some understanding, but we understand that we're under pressure as well, and we have to try and win while doing it.
And the difficulty for both of these sides, Rachel Corsi, is managing PSR rules when they're trying to bring players in. We've seen how it's affected Aston Villa and Newcastle. One of the players that will be the focus of today is Jacob Ramsey. Big goal for him on Tuesday night, scoring the winner at Spurs and showing how he can be the next part of Eddie Howe's plans, and that's what Eddie Howe was speaking about after the game in the win at Spurs. But of course comes to Aston Villa and comes back to Aston Villa, and the question is, did Villa actually ever want to get rid of him?
I mean, firstly, brilliant goal midweek, and that is what you need if you're going to be a team that competes. You need midfielders that score goals, and he's certainly capable of that. He had a very good game, I thought, and he is a player that is very, very, very well liked, loved here. I think it was a very clear understanding that it was a PSR rules situation. He's come through the academy system. Fans always love that, and I would expect today he'll get a warm reception, because we all know that was the circumstances. These are the things with football now, though. He'll come today probably with a little extra edge. I think it'll be a little bit emotional for him, but I always think, a lot of the times players kind of thrive on that little extra edge. So it'll be really interesting to see how well he goes. But the PSR is one of these situations, isn't it? The PSR rules sometimes take away that little nice, fluffy, lovely bit that we normally like as football fans, where you bring someone through the academy into the first team.
Getting close to kick-off, but I also want to ask you, in the Newcastle side today, Nick Voltemada started pretty well when he arrived up on Tyneside, but his form has dipped off a little bit. I think I saw a statistic the other day. He's currently averaging only 1.9 shots per game in the Premier League. Starts today, his chance to rediscover some form?
It's been a little bit difficult for him, and I think he's probably taken some harsh scrutiny. 9 goals in all competitions, first season in the Premier League. Sort of around this signing, of course, it was tied in with the Isak saga that I think, was just fairly unfortunate all round as well. He's clearly a very good player. He's enormously talented. I don't think we have seen the best of that, but I think that's also understandable. So yes, another opportunity for him to show what he can do. Likely he'll play a little bit deeper, which a lot of people say is where he prefers. So we'll get to see what he can do tonight.
The other player that is hitting good form for Newcastle United, Harvey Barnes, ever influential. But we now know, unlikely he'll be playing for Scotland at this summer's World Cup. He's eligible for both England and Scotland. Here is the Scotland boss, Steve Clarke.
This time I can say for sure Harvey's going to stay, concentrate on trying to play for England. He's not going to come to Scotland, so you can put that one out there.
That's definitive, is it?
Yeah. sure.
So that won't be happening?
Yeah, so nobody needs to ask me about it anymore, and nobody needs to ask Harvey anymore.
Disappointed?
No, listen, Harvey can make his decision, so we move on.
That is Steve Clarke. They have ramped up the atmosphere inside Villa Park this evening as the night sky draws over this famous stadium in the West Midlands. We've got a laser show on the pitch, casting out silhouettes of famous Aston Villa players from the 90s. They've made it a real 90s feel inside Villa Park this evening, not only with the music choice, the likes of Venga Boys, the likes of the Urban Cookie Collective and Cher, but also with some of the retro players being casted down on the pitch by the multicoloured lasers. The flames have been blaring out from their boxes just by the tunnel as well, creating a little bit of warmth as they fire up into the night sky. Floodlights now on full display, having been flickered for the tune of Hi Ho Aston Villa, the club anthem that they sing just before the players come out. Players in the tunnel here. We'll get on to the players involved in the action in just a minute in terms of domestic sense, Rachel Corsie, but I can't not ask you about Harvey Barnes' decision not to play for Scotland.
Yeah, you got to respect it. I think it's a very valid one. He feels he's got a chance to play for England, and if he feels that's where his passion lies, you respect. I think he's a great player, but Scotland will be excited in their own right, and Steve Clarke will be glad that now he can just focus on the players he knows are available, and we're still all very much looking forward to the summer, that's for sure.
Most certainly are, and the Scotland games will all be live for you, of course, on BBC Radio 5 Live. Fireworks light up from the far side of Villa Park in the Doug Ellis stand, partly filled by Newcastle fans, partly filled by Aston Villa supporters. Teams make their way out from the tunnel in the corner away to our left-hand side. Newcastle in their cream tracksuit tops, Aston Villa in their sky blue tracksuit tops ahead of the handshakes. Villa Park is our setting this evening as a cloud of smoke just wafts its way from that far side where the fireworks went off. Two classic teams, two classic kits, two classic fixtures in a classic competition, Rachel Corsie. The only question we have left is, will this be a classic game or not?
Well, we very much hope so, and just the energy already at this point. You can even just see, looking at the players just now, Dan Burn just really getting himself, feeling it, clapping his hands, trying to rally those around him, and there's a fantastic energy at this point, and I think the anticipation everyone's waiting for is ready to be unleashed.
Large banners on a huge pole just waft in front of the Holt end away to our right-hand side with the phrase "Up the Villa," one with the club crest on it. The Newcastle fans, so often loud and proud, might have their work cut out this evening to be heard in amongst this Aston Villa crowd. In 5 of the last 6 FA Cup ties between the pair, one of them's gone on to reach the final. It was the 19-0 final as Aston Villa beat Newcastle in front of over 100,000 people. Only one may make it that far this season, given they are meeting in the 4th round. But who wants it more? Who can manage the game load more?
Yeah, I mean, that's something for towards the end of it. But I mean, Villa last season, of course, went all the way to the semi-finals, and it was bitterly disappointing the nature they went out of the competition. A lot of the players on the pitch today experienced that, and I think sometimes those little tough memories serve you well in these moments when you face very tough opposition at this stage. You know, there was other teams in the draw where it might have been more favourable, but you get a tie against another Premier League team, and in many ways it keeps you at that level that both teams will want to stay at, because both teams have some very important games coming up too. So it should certainly be high energy in this opening half, I would expect.
The TV cameras panning on Morgan Rogers, Aston Villa's most influential player this season, most goal involvements, 10 goals, 7 assists for him. He's one of 3 Aston Villa players that remain from the team that beat Brighton here on Wednesday night. Bogard and Douglas Luiz, the other 2. So Aston Villa have Bizot in goal, as he has done for the majority of cup competitions for Aston Villa this season. Lamar Bogard is the makeshift right back, given the injury to Matty Cash. Lindelof, who won the FA Cup with Manchester United in 2024, starts in central defence alongside Pau Torres and Luca Dean at left back. Amadou Onana and Douglas Luiz hold the midfield. Rogers, Ross Barkley, restart for him, is part of the attacking 3 behind Tammy Abraham. As for Newcastle United, who just go into their little huddle in between the halfway line and their own 18-yard box, they make 7 changes from the side that got a rare away win, beating Spurs as they did on Tuesday. Trippier, Byrne and Barnes, 3 of that 4 that remain. Jacob Ramsey back to face his former club. So in goal, Aaron Ramsdale, Trippier, Chow, Byrne and Hall make the back four. Chow scored in that win over Spurs, getting the first goal. With Bruno Guimaraes out for 2 months, Sandro Tonali will have the holding midfield role. Will Asula, who very rarely starts, is alongside him, and Jacob Ramsey in midfield. It's another Jacob Murphy on the right of the front three. Harvey Barnes and Nick Voltemar to complete the Newcastle United lineup for Eddie Howe, who stands on the edge of his technical area in his tracksuit. We're underway. Aston Villa, the home side, with their predominantly claret shirts with the sky blue sleeves, the white shorts and sky blue socks. They are right to left in the opening 45 minutes, attacking away from the Holte end. Towards it, Newcastle United, green shirts, white shorts and green socks. Tammy Abraham has the ball inside the centre circle. Only his second start since his January move as Aston Villa look to get moving forward. It's Abraham's header down, looking for Leon Bailey to hook it back on the byline, but only into the hands of Aaron Ramsdale, who clutches at it and bowls it out onto that far side for Newcastle to get their first meaningful touches.
Oh, it's a brilliant start, isn't it? I think initially Newcastle, great pressure, forcing Marco Bissot just to go long, but from there they do so well to keep a hold of it. Leon Bailey almost getting in.
Lovely start for both sides as Newcastle just tricked their way to the edge of the penalty area. Lewis Hall was involved. Down goes Anana just outside the Aston Villa penalty area, so that will be a free kick to the home side, but both showing attacking intent early on.
Yeah, and both managers very much at the edge of their dugout, knowing that just presence in these opening few minutes, 5-10 minutes is really important. It's your first chance to kind of get your touch on the ball, but also can you put pressure on your opposite number? Can you make it uncomfortable, not give them that chance to settle in nice and early? And you know, it's been fierce and competitive so far.
Well, in the first game of the Premier League season, both of these two met, 0-0 draw, 9 shots across the game. Aston Villa only had 3 shots in the entire 90 minutes, which is the joint lowest by any team. Given the way we've started this match, I find it hard to believe Villa will only have 3 shots in this game, and I find it hard to believe that there'll only be 9 shots across the 90 as well. Ball just slowly runs back towards Victor Lindelof in the right centre-back position with the Holte end behind him. Nudges it back to Marco Bissot, who's produced some stunning saves this season in critical games for Aston Villa, particularly late on in their Europa League phase matches. Seen them a couple of times in that. He right-footed, sends it up towards the halfway line. Leon Bailey tries to get the control, does so, but is facing into his own half. Here's Anana, here's Lindelof. Villa, a little bit of reassurance on the ball. Yeah, good play. You know, Newcastle press very much player for player, they're high and aggressive. Leon Bailey, they're doing well to just cushion the ball down. Dan Burns' header from the centre circle. Over on BBC Radio 5 Live right now, the second half of Scotland-England, the Calcutta Cup, the Six Nations. Second game of the Six Nations for both of those sides. Scotland leading at the break, which forced a smile on Rachel Corsy's face. Definitely didn't force a smile, it just came naturally. Here's Voltemar for Newcastle, tries to just nudge it into the 18-yard box from the edge of the D, left-hand side of it, but blocked out by a crowd of Villa players, and Aston Villa are back in control, 0-0. Yeah, it's been good from Villa so far, but most of the possession in their own half, so finding it difficult just to be able to break the pressure of Newcastle. Scotland 24, England 13, the latest score from Murrayfield. Commentary right now on BBC Radio 5 Live. Earlier, Ireland 20 points to 13 winners over Italy, and tomorrow Wales take on France. Douglas Luiz just plays the ball through for Tammy Abraham, who flicks it out towards the far right-hand touchline. Villa right to left in the opening 45 minutes, Newcastle left to right, so when Villa have it on their right-hand side, it's the far side as we look at it, but a little bit sloppy in possession. Douglas Luiz invited Nick Voltemar to come in. Douglas Luiz then takes out Voltemar in frustration in the aftermath and is awarded a very early yellow card. Yeah, and that's just a little bit of untidy play. It was far too slow, and good from Nick Voltemar. Newcastle almost in quite a static defensive position, but just waiting for that moment. And Voltemar had timed it well, got his toe in, and he was about to break away over the halfway line. Douglas Luiz felt he had to pull him down, stop the attack, and that ultimately meant it was certainly the right decision from the referee to issue that yellow card. So we've played 4 minutes, and it's Douglas Luiz's 4th consecutive start since returning to Aston Villa after 18 months away. Signed for Juventus, was on loan at Nottingham Forest initially for the first part of this season, and then recalled and then sent here to Villa Park which I think in terms of shrewd signings, as Newcastle win the ball on the halfway line, it's clever. We know Villa are restricted by PSR rules, so the player they've been able to get in on loan is somebody who already knows the club, and in the second half of the season it just means he can fit in seamlessly, you would imagine, as Newcastle come forward on the right-hand side near. Trippier plays it infield. Here's a chance for Jacob Ramsey against his former club, receives the boos as he tries to manoeuvre into a shooting position, edge of the 18-yard box. He can't, and Aston Villa have now played their way out of trouble. Clever touch, as Rachel Corsie says, from Tammy Abraham, just allows Rodgers some room to go down the left-hand side. A little delicate chip forward, looking for Ross Barkley, headed down by Newcastle, but only to the feet of Tammy Abraham. Here's Leon Bailey in the penalty area. His shot is blocked at source by a sliding to ground Lewis Hall. Aston Villa still have the ball midway inside their own half, out towards the right-hand side. Still 0-0, 5 minutes played on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra. Poor from Villa again, just when it mattered most. A little bit careless in the passing forward, and Newcastle have the interception.
Yeah, it was good defending as well. Newcastle nice and compact in the central area, not really allowing Villa those little central combinations. But Tammy Abraham, for me, just a moment ago, that lovely little touch to just feed Morgan Rodgers into the space. He's under pressure, he looks lively. First time for me seeing him live, and certainly has a presence, and early on so far some really lovely touches.
Now, we mentioned Douglas Luiz returning to the club, so does Tammy Abraham. He's had a little bit of time away. £18 million he signed for in January from Besiktas, yet to score since coming back to Villa Park. Newcastle inside the centre circle have Jacob Ramsey, who's got Trippier in plenty of space on the right-hand side. He doesn't run forward with the ball, instead sends it towards Voltemada. Flick on from him. Harvey Barnes will stop it going over the byline, left-hand side of the penalty area. Gives it back to Ramsey, thought about shooting, ball just ran away from him. Villa get the touch, which just clears it away from Newcastle's number 41. And trying to race away from their own penalty area, Pau Torres into Morgan Rodgers, quickly crowded off the ball by one of 3 Newcastle players to swarm him out. It's Dan Burn who now has the ball at feet, and Sandro Tonali with that mop of brown hair knocks it to the halfway line for Burn once again. Really
good from Newcastle. Their chance now to just be on the front foot. Dan Burn doing really well. Can be uncomfortable 1v1 against Morgan Rodgers, so good with the ball at his feet. Nice and aggressive, gets his foot in.
Malik Chow, who's 3 of his 4 goals this season have come away from home. He's inside the centre circle, just moves the ball out towards the left-hand side. Now Voltemada, and back to the halfway line. Newcastle happy in possession. Both managers fairly calm on the touchline. Unai Emery, it looks like he's had a haircut since I saw him on Wednesday night rather, has got his arms folded in his quilted club winter overcoat on that gets almost to knee height. Voltemada, centre circle, deeper roll from him now, the Newcastle tall centre forward he was brought in as, but it is Will Osula who is currently the furthest man forward for Eddie Howe's side. As from range, Harvey Barnes goes, a little skipping shot along the turf, nothing that troubles Marco Bizot, goes wide of the left-hand post. Aston Villa goal kick 0-0.
Yeah, just Voltemada and Ramsey are finding that little pocket between the back 4 and Villa's defensive midfielder, Douglas Luiz and Onana. Just a few times now they've got the ball there and got faced up, and that's a dangerous position. I think, as you were just mentioning, Osula definitely the furthest forward, but naturally you'd expect Voltemada will almost at times join him up there. You'll have a handful of almost 2 9s playing there, which can be difficult.
Thomas Tuchel, the England manager, the now extended contract England manager, is in the crowd. Big black coat on, his signature baseball cap as well. The black baseball cap just raised to shield his forehead, as almost keeps him incognito, as if he doesn't want to know he's here, but he's got plenty of options to be assessing, and maybe even still Harvey Barnes is lurking on the left-hand side for Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very competitive position for England, but he's having a good season, and ultimately ahead of a World Cup you got to keep doing that, keep scoring goals, keep creating chances. You're in the mix.
We'll be watching the likes of Morgan Rodgers, Lewis Hall as well in the left back position for Newcastle. Pau Torres just waves out a little hand to acknowledge to Victor Lindelof that ball can just carefully and casually run on through to the edge of the Aston Villa penalty area, inside the box for Marco Bizot, who waits for Will Osula to close him down before picking up the ball with his gloves, his bright orange boots strapped to his feet. Gives it to another player with luminous boots on tonight. Victor Lindelof just strides up to the midway point of the Aston Villa half, sends it forward with a little bit of height on the ball, but it's just cushioned back down by Malik Chow inside the centre circle. Here's Murphy, to Trippier, back to Murphy on the right-hand side. Ball runs close to the byline, is high, looping cross right over the top of the Aston Villa 6-yard box, drops back down just inside the penalty area. Aston Villa have won the loose ball and are now trying to come forward, but as they look forward, sliding challenge comes in and Newcastle have won it back. Here's Nick Voltemada, just tries to out-muscle and out-manoeuvre Leon Bailey, which he does with success, and now Sandro Tonali, 0-0.
Yeah, I tell you what, he's having a good game so far, Nick Voltemada, very much involved in everything. Even, you know, just saying I expect him to join Will Asula up front, but he's very much in the centre of the pitch just now. We're in 50-50s, great strength at first against Onana, then against Douglas Luiz. Very competent under pressure. You'd argue both probably were a foul against him, but more than capable to just shield it, protect it, find a teammate.
For Will Asula to get a start tonight. We've played 10 minutes. It is goalless at Villa Park. 25 of his 26 Aston Villa appearances in the Premier League for Newcastle rather have come from the bench. Has started both the previous FA Cup ties that he's featured in though, scoring in round 3 last year against Bromley. Now Rodgers, a little bit of room to look forward as Villa slowly get towards the edge of the Newcastle 18-yard box. Luca Dean sends it in, but it's one that can always be seen and claimed by Aaron Ramsdale in the Newcastle goal.
Yeah, poor delivery in the end. Great play from Villa. Did really well to get Pau Torres free. Broke over the halfway line.
Trippier now applies an arcing ball, one that Pau Torres is able to deal with. Sorry, Rachel.
Not at all, no, just going to say, look at Dini, really opportunity to put the ball into a good area. It's always going to be Ramsdale's.
Douglas Luiz to Amadou Onana, just rolls the ball under his right boot. Happy to just enjoy the ball. They haven't seen great quantities of it and being able to really get across the halfway line and cause the Newcastle back line any major issues, apart from really the first 30 seconds when Leon Bailey got in on the right hand side, but even his cutback, his chip back was straight into the hands of Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, he was just stretching, wasn't he? But we just see here Newcastle very much baiting the Aston Villa players, you know, that they're not really getting close to the back line as they've got the ball right in the halfway line, because they know that the danger is arguably just in these lines in between the midfield and the back line.
Newcastle look like they're playing with an air of confidence. Eddie Howe was talking about how he now wants consistency, having got that third away win of the Premier League this season against Spurs on Tuesday night. They now want to build on that, but he did mention that the training ground feels happier, the dressing room feels happier now that they've kind of got that monkey off their back with that first away win of 2026.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have these moments of momentum that almost feel like they suffocate you, and that release of pressure does almost always feel very overwhelming in a positive sense when it comes. I've seen Newcastle quite a bit this season, and almost every time I've watched them, they've been really good, not always get the result I felt it deserved.
Abraham, side-footed, just knocks it into the path of Ross Bartley, who tried to play the ball, was caught in the aftermath of doing so, back out to the right-hand side. So Aston Villa free kick, plumb central, and a good 30 yards from goal. Ross Bartley just straightens up his socks, having taken that knock. Malik Chow, the offender for Newcastle United. Do they go from goal here, or is it a little too far out?
I think it depends who you ask. As a centre-back, it's probably made my way up. I'm saying, hang this up at the back post, please. I have a feeling Morgan Rodgers might fancy it. He's not had the opportunity yet to get his first strike of the game in. And sometimes, from these situations, it's just a good moment to take the opportunity, get your eye in. Can you test the goalkeeper? It's quite far out. It would take something very special to go in from here.
Yeah, take a fiercely hit rocket, wouldn't it, from Morgan Rodgers. He's got Douglas Luiz as a close companion on this free kick, still about 5 yards further forward than where the ball is for now. But Rodgers has backtracked 3 or 4 steps, but it is Douglas Luiz to send it in. Tammy Abraham on the chest control, and Tammy Abraham to score for Aston Villa. He slides down on his knees. It was so casual from Villa. The offside flag stays down, no VAR, huge smile on the face of Unai Emery. Tammy Abraham takes it on the chest, spins whilst the ball drops to the floor, and then right-footed sends it low past Aaron Ramsdale. And after 14 minutes, it's Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 0.
Well, what a goal, almost felt like slow motion as Douglas Luiz just chips the ball right down the centre. We didn't cover that one, we didn't expect that. It looked as though Morgan Rodgers had taken the strides to really line up and hit it. At the very last second, Douglas Luiz steps in, and it was slow motion, as it was just, we were waiting for it to drop at Tammy Abraham. Brilliant chest, and he manages to sort his feet out right in front of Ramsdale and just sweep it in with his right foot. Brilliant finish, brilliantly worked move. It is tight. I think it is going to be onside. they'll obviously be making sure that is the case. But a wonderful goal from Villa, great little ingenuity.
Great start for Aston Villa in a game where they've been pretty quiet to begin with in terms of attacking pressure. It is his first goal on his return to the club for Tammy Abraham. It is his first FA Cup goal in 8 years since he scored a brace in an 8-1 win against Notts County back in February 2018. But it was just the casual nature of the Aston Villa free kick. Everyone had their eyes focused on Morgan Rogers. Douglas Luiz just walks calmly back to the ball, spins, flicks it up in the air, and there's Tammy Abraham, maybe fractionally offside, we'll never know due to no VAR investigations tonight in the FA Cup, and it is a really well worked goal.
Yeah, amazing goal.
Hold on, because Newcastle now want the instant reply. It's a wild shot that flies in from Will Asula over the bar into the Holt end, and Villa still lead 1-0.
Yeah, I think it's actually a throw-in, which is never what you want. But back to the goal, I mean, Morgan Rogers, the acting skills were right on point, because as you say, we were watching him, it was the big backward strides, as if you're thinking he's lining this one up, and just the disguise was excellent, and that all plays a part. Newcastle backline will have had zero expectation, zero time to react to that, and of course Tammy Abraham must have known what was coming, because he was certainly alert.
Match of the day tonight, 5-11 BBC One, if you want to watch the invention from the Aston Villa free kick that has them 1-0 up. 16 minutes played, they're trying to get forward again here with Leon Bailey, another one of those returning players. His loan spell was cancelled in January so he could bolster the Aston Villa attacking options in a team that is hit by injuries, but it's working. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 0. Newcastle trying to build again from the back. They're trailing now by that Tammy Abraham goal. And Eddie Howe just down on one knee a moment ago with a pen and a notepad, scratching some notes down, trying to find the solution that how Newcastle can get back level in this game. Downward header from Luca Dean in the left back position. He's swapped places with Ian Matson this evening, both of those interchange. Usually Luca Dean is the away left back and Ian Matson's the home figure, but Unai Emery has given Matson some time off. Here come Villa, right-hand side of penalty. Abraham again, blocked by Chow. Won't come back to Ross Barkley. Huge appeal, some handball for Aston Villa inside the box. Nothing given by the referee, Chris Kavanagh. And Villa come again down the right-hand side. Lewis Hall has to square up against Leon Bailey. Anana. Now Bailey once again. Abraham waits on the centre spot for any early delivery that might come in for Aston Villa. Villa so high now inside the Newcastle half. Dink forward over to the left-hand side. Luca Dean volleys it across the penalty area. Barkley with the downward shot into the ground. It bounces with very little power on it, and it's a comfortable catch in the end for Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, brilliant from Villa, but equally brilliant defending from Newcastle. Thiaw in the end. Huge block from Tammy Abraham. Morgan Rogers doing incredibly well, rides 2 or 3 of tackles in his own half, breaks through. Voltemada tries to hold him back, he's able to shift it down that right hand side. Leon Bailey with a cutback. Thiaw does really well, and then the second phase of that, Villa keep it alive. Look at Dini, just maybe made it slightly difficult for Ross Barkley, and as you say, didn't quite catch it with his left foot as he tried to sort of do one of those sidewinders off the ground, and comfortable for Ramsdale, but brilliant from Villa, lots of momentum, crowd loving it.
Certainly are finding their voice. 18 minutes played, Villa 1, Newcastle 0 on 5 Sports Extra over on 5 Live right now. Scotland against England in the Calcutta Cup. It is one of 7 FA Cup commentaries across 5 Live, Saturday, Sunday, and then concludes with Macclesfield against Brentford on Monday. We're getting a replay of Aston Villa's goal. Abraham, I think, is fractionally offside, isn't he?
Yeah, he's offside. He just goes a little bit too early. I'm just getting a nice replay here of the acting skills from Douglas Luiz, but he does go too early. Doesn't matter.
Scotland 31, England 13, live on BBC Radio 5 Live right now. Tomorrow, commentary of Birmingham against Leeds, Grimsby Wolves, then Rangers against Hearts in the Scottish Premiership concludes our coverage tomorrow over on 5 Live Sport. Wales against France will be on Sports Extra 2 in the Six Nations tomorrow. Already through in the FA Cup 4th round, West Ham after extra time beating Burton Albion at lunchtime today. Burnley, the big shock of the day, they're out to League One Mansfield, losing 2-1 at Turf Moor. Manchester City beat Salford City 2-0 at the Etihad Stadium. Norwich 3, West Brom 1, and Southampton against Leicester has gone into extra time. Newcastle have the ball at the feet, halfway line. Villa retreating. Tammy Abraham, who took a knock, was just rotating his right ankle. Is now just taking a period of time out on the sidelines here. The fourth official making sure he doesn't go back onto the pitch any earlier than he should. Nice turn from Voltemada, 25 yards from goal. Never had the angle to shoot though, never had the space to shoot. Was quickly forced away from goal. Here he is now inside right of the penalty area. Laid back. Jacob Murphy, who got so many assists for Newcastle last year, has struggled to find that form in the 2025-26 campaign so far. Even his cross on the right hand side there deflects off a Villa defender, comes back to Ramsey, who wasn't necessarily expecting it, can't get the control. Ramsey, Villa hacked it away through Pau Torres inside their own penalty area, and with nobody that far forward for Aston Villa, in and around the halfway line, Dan Burn can comfortably collect the ball. Newcastle will recycle, go again. 20 minutes played, Villa 1, Newcastle 0.
Yeah, and it's a little bit you go, we go at the moment, isn't it? Fairly even game. Villa obviously getting that goal, taking the advantage, now probably puts the onus on Newcastle to be a little more adventurous. Good spell of possession.
Ball from the left-hand side from Harvey Barnes, had the run of Will Asula. And he's out of play for Newcastle throw midway inside the Aston Villa half, far side, their left. Newcastle fans get a third or so of the Doug Ellis stand, the two-tiered stand on the far side. They've also got the top tier, the North stand, away to our left-hand side, the end that Newcastle will be attacking in the second half. Get a greater allocation for FA Cup matches. Just wondering, on quite a cool evening in the West Midlands, just how many Geordies have got their tops off. I can't see too many, can see plenty of black and white scarves though away to our left-hand side. Newcastle in possession just outside the centre circle with Harvey Barnes, flat ball low along the ground to the right-hand side for Kieran Trippier. Murphy's in there, Trippier then fires in the cross, looping, controlled by Lewis Hall, edge of the D, tries to trick his way through a crowd of Villa players. Some appeal of a dive from some of the Aston Villa supporters. Some Newcastle fans want a penalty. They're at the wrong end of the ground maybe to make that call. It was in a crowd of players. Referees instead later on giving Aston Villa a free kick midway inside their own half. Rachel Corsie.
Oh well, we're just getting a replay of that and we just see Pau Torres dangles a leg. I think that's very unlucky not to be given as a foul. Good little skill. Lewis Hall receives on the edge of the box, good take out there, takes on the thigh, and then almost just shifts it inside to then shift back onto his left foot. And as he does that, Pau Torres just hangs a leg out. And it wasn't Lindelof, I can't tell which one it was now, but certainly there was contact, and there was certainly no contact with the ball.
Well, VAR had a controversial moment on Tuesday night when it ruled out Joe Willock's goal by his hairline, effectively. Not that Newcastle cared in the end, winning by 2-1. They'll wish VAR was in use tonight, given that they may have felt that Lewis Hall should have had a penalty there. 5 Sports Extra live from Villa Park. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 0. We are past the halfway point of the first half. And you mentioned Pau Torres in passing there, Rachel. Tonight becomes the most used player of Unai Emery's managerial career. 201st appearance under the Spanish boss for the Spanish defender of Aston Villa. He overtakes Ever Banega, who had that great run under him at Sevilla and Villarreal. So Aston Villa leading by 1-0. Here is Torres to swipe the ball up towards the halfway line. Tammy Abraham bundled over from behind by Dan Burn, and that is an Aston Villa free kick.
Yeah, good little battle there.
They've gone early with the free kick towards Ross Barkley. Sandro Tonali in the way.
Yeah, Sandro Tonali read it well. Saw it happening, had to cover centrally between his two centre-backs. Did just that though, and then nice control to just bring it down, get Newcastle possession back.
Aston Villa, who beat Spurs in round 3, knocked out Spurs in round 4 last season to reach the 5th round. They haven't made the 5th round in consecutive seasons, since doing so 3 times between 2009 and 2011. It is a trophy that Aston Villa will feel they can win. It'll certainly be a trophy that Newcastle United feel they can win. But at the moment it's advantage Villa in 5 of the last 6 meetings between the pair. One of these has gone on to reach the final, so Aston Villa will certainly maybe dreaming of Wembley. Dan Burn, left centre-back position. Aaron Ramsdale is well out of his own penalty area here, almost midway inside the Newcastle half. Bright pink goalkeeper outfit on for Aaron Ramsdale, the blonde-haired goalkeeper of Newcastle United, second choice behind Nick Pope, who's on the bench this evening. Here's Kieran John Trippier. Our team sheets tonight, printed out for us in the press box, feature the majority of players' middle names, so I'm learning more about the players than I ever thought I would this evening. Ball from Newcastle, back to Luca Dean, and he goes back to his own goalkeeper, Marco, no middle name, Bizot.
Yeah, one of those strange ones, as you say. Add it to your sheet of endless facts that always impress me.
Rogers tries to force his way forward, always hampered by Malik Chow, who goes into the book. Second player in the book this evening, the first of a Newcastle persuasion. Malik Chow holding back almost by the neck. Might see that more in the Six Nations, where Scotland still lead England over on 5 Live. Malik Chow, yellow card. Don't think you can have too many complaints about that, Rachel.
No, quite a cynical foul, and difficult position now because his battle with Tammy Abraham has been fairly competitive, and you now got to go the best part of an hour and behave yourself.
So Aston Villa free kick. That was the voice of Rachel Louise Corsi on 5 Sports Extra. Villa free kick just to the right of the centre circle, inside Newcastle's half. Douglas Luiz, who did well on that free kick of which Villa lead from, flies it out towards the right-hand side. Leon Bailey's got 2 players around him, Harvey Barnes and Lewis Hall. He almost got past one, felt he was hampered by the other. Newcastle come forward down that left-hand side, the far side as we look at it, to try and break away and catch Villa out with that stricken Leon Bailey, still in his own half, just about clambers to his feet. Villa have handled it, and Unai Emery here is just patting his hands down, almost like a calm down sign to his players, with Marco Bizot, who had his ball to feet, goes long, and now it's on the halfway line. Leon Bailey takes over the possession.
Yeah, it was a good break there for Newcastle. Really poor ball in the end from Harvey Barnes. I thought Sula potentially could have got in behind, got on his bike.
Luca Dean, left-footed, early cross into the penalty area. There is a diving header from Leon Bailey, who'd almost ghosted in there. Looks like players were too busy focused on Ross Barkley. Leon Bailey comes in from the far side, diving header wide of the left-hand post, and it will be a goal kick to Newcastle. We played 26 minutes, Aston Villa leading by 1-0.
Good opportunity that. He just almost goes in, ends up ahead of it, and he just has to hold his run, and that probably just means he doesn't quite naturally come onto it, and almost does a little bit too much work with the header and sends that back where it's come from, and it goes wide of the post.
First start since his return to Aston Villa for Leon Bailey this evening. 4 previous appearances, all on the substitutes bench, given a chance to impress Unai Emery. And with Aston Villa still fighting on 3 fronts, you can argue the Premier League, certainly the Europa League, and most definitely the FA Cup. Unai Emery will have to use what is a thin squad at the moment, and particularly in the midfield. They've lost 3 significant players in that midfield. John McGinn, Yuri Tillemans and Boubacar Kamara all absent, and long-term injuries for Aston Villa. So the likes of Amadou Onana, Ross Barkley might get a little bit more game time as well, and Leon Bailey may be used too at times.
Yeah, they'll need to be smart. Of course, Bogard can play there as well, more naturally. There's also got issues at right back, so he's been used there.
Newcastle forward here with Harvey Barnes shuffling it onto his right foot, then his left foot. He goes down in the box. It was Ramsey, wasn't it, actually, who goes down just on the penalty spot. The former Aston Villa man, who doesn't look to be... You know, sometimes you see some players and wonder, you know, do they really want to play against their former club? Do they want to score? I think Jacob Ramsey's not bothered about returning here.
I think you're right. I think he would love to score, not because it's against his team, but just because he's a competitive player. I think that was a good challenge. I don't think there was much more in that. I actually thought the touch, and then Marco Bizot picked it up. I wondered if the referee may consider that as, was that intentional?
Jacob Ramsey's just won a brilliant sliding challenge on the edge of the centre circle. It's got Newcastle looking forward here through Kieran Trippier, tight to the right-hand touchline, near side the right for Eddie Howe's side. Just folds his arms, the Newcastle manager, then puts them down by his side. Not overly frustrated, but he is encouraging his team now, just almost doubling over and applauding as they play it to the right-hand side again. Sandro Tonali, now Malik Chow, almost at walking pace. He just knocks it to his defensive centre-back partner in the large 6'6" frame of Dan Burn. Now Chow. It's a poor pass forward, and Ross Barkley is able to control the ball on the halfway line, intercept it, and have Aston Villa looking forward here. Just a little slide to the right-hand side for Abraham. Only one to aim for. Abraham's cross doesn't get anywhere near Morgan Rogers. He wasn't going for goal from there, surely, was it? Easy catch, chest height for Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, I think it took a deflection off Hall on its way through, but I just felt there when Ross Barkley picked that ball up, there was an opportunity to shoot. Ramsdale knew it. He literally turned around and sprinted without looking towards the goal, because if Barkley did choose to do that, and if it was on target, it would have certainly been stretching the goalkeeper.
Nearly half an hour played, Aston Villa leading by a goal to nil. It is two Premier League sides meeting in the FA Cup fourth round under the lights of Villa Park. Aston Villa unbeaten in the Premier League this season when they've scored first, won 9, drawn 2. Newcastle have only won 1 of 6 when conceding first in the Premier League this season, losing the other 5. Lovely ball over the top though. Here is Harvey Barnes, left in the penalty area, goes down again in the box. Referee points down the hand to say goal kick. Harvey Barnes really wants an explanation to the referee as to why he's not given a penalty there. Sliding challenge came in as we get another look at it. Perfectly timed run from Barnes. Ball was sent over the top of Lamar Bogard. Barnes trying to drag it infield onto the right of the penalty area, and he can't, and he goes down. And is that just a coming together, Rachel Corsie?
Definitely just a coming together. It's actually, I think, a pure touch from Barnes. It's a beautiful run, brilliant ball from Hall, and as he comes onto it, he just doesn't get it out his feet, and that just lets Bogard get back. And then in the end, it's just sort of a coming together, 50-50, both arrive at the ball at the same time. Great opportunity, do so well to work the chance to get in behind, and then just wasted there from Barnes for me.
Lewis Hall needs to sort out his communication. Nick Voltemada both on the touchline, left-hand side on the halfway point, just trying to get in out of each other's way, and eventually Lewis Hall's ball down the left is one that's able to trickle on through into the penalty area. And Marco Bizot can just hold the ball at his hands. He'll get the signal from the referee for 8 seconds, but nothing stops the goalkeeper just dropping the ball at his feet, which Marco Bizot does, and passes it out towards his right-hand side for Victor Lindelof. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 0. The goal coming early on, around the 13-14 minute mark, from Tammy Abraham. Chest control from a Douglas Luiz free kick, and on the turn fired it low past Ramsdale. You can listen back to it on BBC Sounds right now if you wanted to listen to how it sounded on Match of the Day tonight. 5-11 on BBC One. It'll have highlights of West Ham's extra time win over Burton Albion. It will have Burnley's defeat at home to Mansfield, League One Mansfield knocking out Premier League Burnley as well, plus of this game, which is still too hard to call, I feel. Leon Bailey, right hand side, touchline for Aston Villa, the far side. Here's Nick Voltemada facing away from the goal of which Newcastle are aiming for. He's on the halfway line, and now it's pinged out towards this right hand side. Switching play from Newcastle. Kieran Trippier, although now at the grand old age of 35, was very impressive on Tuesday night in that win over Spurs, and he's having to play it right back because the likes of Tino Livramento out for a long term. Eddie Howe knows he's got a call on the 35-year-old, but it's working for Newcastle. Kieran Trippier said the experienced players in Newcastle's patchy form this season have to help steady the ship when they can, and right now they've got to turn that ship around and face the lead because they're 1-0 down against Aston Villa,
which is difficult, but I agree with that. You know, I think that Trippier, now more senior player, can measure and balance certain situations. On the other side, you have Lewis Hall, and he loves to go forward, and I think that probably suits the balance of the team. Yes, there's still a desire and demand for Trippier to support attacks and get round the outside as well as he's doing right now.
Trippier waits for the ball to drop, and the long ball to the right-hand side. Morgan Rogers is back there for Aston Villa doing his defensive duties. He's got Jacob Murphy all over the back of him, just giving him no room to turn forward or try and play the ball forward, keeping Aston Villa penned inside their own penalty area here. Rogers in the possession, Torres the outlet, but again, all of this happening inside Villa's 18-yard box, and as Villa are able to go and play the long ball forward, it's easily intercepted by Malik Chow. Turn around the corner, here's Harvey Barnes, side netting from the edge of the 6-yard box on the angle. Harvey Barnes beat the goalkeeper but couldn't beat the goal line, and Newcastle's chance for an equaliser goes away for now. Villa still lead by a goal to nil.
Yeah, there's good pressure from Newcastle. I think Harvey Barnes probably, I'm being critical, but I think he can do better there. He sort of goes for the near post, which is using his left foot. I think you're always taught to probably go across the goal, because even if it ends up being a second phase, you might get a tap in from someone in the central area. He sends it, you know, wide of the near post. Just never going to get anything from that.
Well, he can draw the critics because he's scored so many goals for Newcastle this season. 12 goals, 2 assists. Only Bruno Guimaraes has more goal involvements than Harvey Barnes. He's played in 40 of Newcastle's 41 games this season, including this one. 2 goals in round 3 against Bournemouth. You almost expect him to find the net these days.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm being a little bit harsh, but you just feel he's so exciting. He creates so many good chances. He puts himself in so many great positions. He's already done that tonight 2 or 3 times now, especially in these last 2 or 3 minutes. And just the last few have just been a little bit of a soft outcome when you think, oh, can this be a good chance?
Villa have a free kick to the left of the centre circle, 10 yards or so inside their own half. Douglas Luiz did what he did for the goal and just wanders back and takes the free kick. It almost reminded me of like a training ground move you'd often try and practice in primary school and look so casual when walking back from a penalty or something like that, and then turning around and face the goalkeeper. That's how Douglas Luiz approached the free kick that had Aston Villa scoring their goal through Tammy Abraham. Villa 1, Newcastle 0, 10 minutes to half time.
Yeah, and the game's just slowed down, I feel, which is understandable because ferocious pace to start with. Just now a little more measured, a little less need for Villa to really be in the front foot and trying to tackle, though I will say precarious position at just 1-0.
Well, Villa won the last FA Cup tie between these two 1-0 as well. That was a 3rd round replay. Darius Vassell with the goal here at Villa Park, January 2001. Of course, met each other plenty of times. 10 seasons ago, these two played each other in the Championship. Newcastle won the second tier that year. Aston Villa finished 13th. It has been a great rise over the last decade for both of these sides.
Oh, absolutely. They've become 2 teams that have put themselves right in the mix with the best of the Premier League, and both doing exceptionally well in the competitions in Europe. Both with aspirations this season to continue doing that and hopefully qualify for more of that in the seasons to come.
Yeah, Aston Villa enjoying their 3rd successive year in Europe, 3rd different competition on the continent as well, having been in the Conference League a couple of years ago, Champions League last season. Now they're in the Europa League and casting themselves as one of the favourites to win the competition, which they would probably do through their own natural ability anyway and the quality of players. But when you've got Unai Emery managing you, 5-time winner of the Europa League as a manager, it probably just bolsters those odds a little bit.
Yeah, and you have the weight on your shoulders with that as well. Which seems a little harsh, but
well, it's his own standards that he's set for himself as Unai Emery, as Villa set their own standards as well, leading as they are by a goal to 0, 8 minutes from half time. Luca Dean back to Douglas Luiz, 25 yards from goal. He might go for it from here. Rising shot that dipped at the very last minute but clipped the roof of the net. Goes behind for a Newcastle goal kick. Just afforded a fraction of space there, Douglas Luiz, to manoeuvre into, right-footed. The ball just sat cleanly, whistled through the air, but roof of the net, and Villa still lead 1-0.
Oh, wicked effort. And just always felt like it was rising above the height of the crossbar, but you know, you give a player like that with the quality, the confidence that he carries, a bit of space at the edge of the box, he's going to try one from there. Brilliant effort.
I'll tell you what, if he was a yard further back, that's top corner, I reckon, from Douglas Luiz. Aaron Ramsdale, very relieved. He did raise a hand up in the air. The Newcastle goalkeeper, but very little he would have been able to do about that shot had it just been a little bit lower. Newcastle win the header on the halfway line, not once but twice. Jacob Ramsey gets it to Will Osula, who's able to turn. Nick Voltemada emerges with the ball and then sends it out to the right-hand side for Kieran Trippier, just wide right of the penalty area, slides in, thinks that's taken a deflection off a recovering Morgan Rogers. Linesman on this near side says that will be an Aston Villa goal kick. We'll get the replays now. It is a clean touch from Kieran Trippier. There is no deflection off Morgan Rogers. Goal kick is the right decision.
It is the right decision, and I just wonder maybe there if Trippier would have been better just slowing down and making Rogers deal with that. You know, you're likely at a minimum maybe going to get a throw in or something. In the end, it lets Villa off the hook.
Eddie Howe was in conversation with Paul Turney, our 4th official there. All look fairly friendly. He's Dan Burn, right-hand side. The Newcastle left centre-back just steps in there. And Aston Villa have to settle for a throw in 10 yards from the halfway line, near side the left. Here's Rogers, quickly closed down by Dan Burn, who gave it all shoulder, all muscle. Just didn't even nudge Morgan Rogers, did he really? Rogers stood tall.
He did. There's not many people that knock Dan Burn onto the ground. He went flying. In the end, the ball came back to him. He ended up winning the ball back almost fortuitously.
Yeah, certainly if Dan Burn's coming in on you, it's you that goes down. Dan Burn ran into the statue figure of Morgan Rogers, poor control from Lewis Hall. That's the sarcastic cheers from the Aston Villa fans. It gives them a throw-in. Newcastle seem to have done so many things right, but then a couple of things sloppy this evening, and that's maybe why they're a goal down.
Yeah, and we can just see Eddie Howe now in the pictures in front of us looking a little bit frustrated, and I think it may be less so at that touch, just unfortunately went under Lewis Hall's foot, but you know, I think at times he's feeling they're a little bit laboured at getting forward, and he knows that it's so difficult to break down Aston Villa if they allow the back four to be settled, the midfield to come in front, and it becomes a difficult block. You know, he very much, when we go forward, it's much easier if you can exploit the space as it's there.
We've got about 5 minutes left of this first half. There is little over 5 minutes at Murrayfield, where Scotland still lead England by 31 points to 13. Crossing from Murphy, volleyed away from the edge of the Aston Villa 6-yard box on this near side, Newcastle's right. Tonali has the ball in his green Newcastle shirt. Now Murphy, just away from the right corner of the penalty area in front of the Holte end. Very few sat down in that famous stand away to our right-hand side, the two-tiered stand that is just full of Aston Villa supporters. There isn't a director's box in sight in the Holte end. Here's a turn and a twist from Jacob Ramsey. Once used to do that in the claret of Aston Villa, now he's doing it in the green of Newcastle tonight. Voltemada, square pass to his right-hand side, finds Kieran Trippier. Oh, late on Jacob Ramsey was Luca Dean, and that is going to be an instant yellow card. Very little decision for Chris Kavanagh, the referee, to make in awarding the yellow card to Luca Dean. Jacob Murphy is down on the floor. It was late. He didn't get the ball. He got all of the player. Free kick given.
Yeah, and I think this you know, I don't think it's any nastier than a yellow card, but it's the pace at which he comes in at. We'll just get another look. Well, that's not a good one actually on the replay. He catches Murphy on the foot initially and sort of over the top of the ankle and the lower shin, and I actually think that the speed at which he comes in there is aggressive. I think that's a nasty. We're seeing now as well the mark on his shin. I actually think he's very, very lucky that the referee's been in the middle of the pitch. It's right on this sideline. Potentially the linesman was ahead of the play, so didn't maybe see the exact contact point, but that is nasty.
Yeah, and Eddie Howe's now getting the explanation from Paul Turney, the fourth official. There is two little dents on the calf almost of Jacob Murphy. It's late from behind. When you see it slowed down, and I know PGMOL are very aware of slow-mo replays and how that can make an incident look worse, but it's not quite as intense, but it is the boot on top of the foot that's very similar to Christian Romero for Spurs against Casemiro of Manchester United a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, and
the pass from Trippier is one of these, people call it hospital ball or things like that, because it's slightly slower, which entices the tackle. And sometimes you want that, but it makes it very dangerous as Luca Dini's come in with pace.
Trippier with the free kick, right-hand side, sends it to the back post. There is a header down, maybe from Voltemada, maybe from one of Aston Villa's own men, and it kind of just rolls its way to the right-hand post, and it's a comfortable stop in the end for Marco Bizot. Yeah, it's a combination, isn't it, of Victor Lindelof and Voltemada rising for the header, and Marco Bizot can dive down on the ball and stop any further danger.
Yeah, the game's just getting a little bit of added spicy, and after that, Sula just had it coming together with Marco Bizot. Nothing really much, but you just feel as the game goes on, and the more tackles like that we see, the more decisions that the fans get on the back of the referee, just heightens the atmosphere in here.
Pau Torres up to the halfway line. Tammy Abraham with his back to goal just flicks it out towards the right-hand side. Lovely ball as it works out. Leon Bailey controls on the right-hand touchline. Aston Villa leading this one by 1-0. With a couple of minutes to go of regular time in the first half. There might be a little bit added on as well. Bailey be trying to be put through on the right-hand side. Dan Burn steps across. I think tried to play it off Leon Bailey, didn't work out, and Aston Villa have a corner. It's off the boot of Dan Burn over on that far side.
Yeah, first real chance from Villa. I've just realised I've had to adjust myself in the seat to turn and face the goal that Ramsdale's standing in. Lovely little ball from Leon Bailey. Dan Burn does very well, because the pace of Bailey, you think, can he get onto that early? Burns sees the danger, does well to meet it at the right time, concedes the corner though.
It's at the end where the Newcastle fans are in the top tier of the North stand away to our left-hand side. They'll be nervy, hoping their side can hold on here and certainly not be too down at the break to Aston Villa as we approach the final minute of the first half. A congregation of players all charge and muddle themselves at the near post. Corner swung in from Leon Bailey, comes off Ross Barkley, back to Bailey, in it goes. Tammy Abraham tries to flick it on. Here's Anana, He's got his back to goal. Luca Dean, Douglas Luiz goes for one of those delicate chips over the top. Abraham cushions it down. Dan Burn sends it away first time behind the goal for another Aston Villa corner.
Another great move, and I tell you what, Leon Bailey does so well. He must hear the shout from Onana behind him, because he was certainly offside, but you see he leaves it. Onana comes right round the back, tries to square it. Newcastle are furious, but I think that's the right decision.
So another corner to Aston Villa again on that far side. They're right. In front of the Doug Ellis stand, in front of the Newcastle supporters who will be jeering. Leon Bailey, who just takes 3 or 4 strides back from the ball, expecting an in-swinging delivery. Again, that congregation of players goes to the near post. He goes short to Pau Torres. Lovely turn on the byline from Pau Torres, fires it into the 6-yard box. It comes off a Newcastle player. Lewis Hall and Leon Bailey challenge for it. It's off Lewis Hall last. It will be another corner to Newcastle, and just 1 minute of added time at the end of this first half. Villa leading 1-0.
Yeah, and really interesting corner set up. Austin McPhee out at the edge of the box now, of course, set piece specialist. You've just got a congregation of players really close to the edge of the 18, near the corner taker. They've changed it up now, almost coming off, lots of different combinations.
Yeah, Luca Dean, the Aston Villa captain, with his white armband on his left sleeve, will send the corner in, headed away by Ramsey. Barnes then helps it on. Bailey slips as he almost scissor kicks it forward for Villa. But now they're in trouble because Newcastle are on the counter-attack, and Marco Bizot's been sent off. He was well out of his goal, and Jacob Murphy was moving to the left of the centre circle. What was Marco Bizot doing? Newcastle had 3 on the charge. Bizot didn't want to take the chance. All of the player, none of the ball. Straight red card, and Villa are down to 10.
Wow. I mean, Marco Bizot, it's 3v1, I think. Otherwise, the ball comes in behind, and you can clearly see Newcastle away. It's a slip in the phase of the corner, right at the edge of the box, that kills Aston Villa. They've too many players high. Newcastle ready to break, and I think Bizot realises he's in no man's land, and he tries to help. I think initially he thinks, can I defend this? He clearly can. It's Leon Bailey that slips, and he's almost the last man. There's a recovering defender. There is another player there, but he just takes Murphy out, and they're going to have to shift things around now, Villa. Of course, they'll bring on the goalkeeper. Bizot just taking his time to allow Martinez to warm up and get ready, find his gloves.
Yeah, so Jacob Murphy was racing away over the halfway line. He'd sent the ball forward past Bizot, out to the left-hand side. Bizot running in one direction, would never have recovered. Jacob Murphy would have got past him. Unai Emery pats Bizot on the back as he goes to sit down in the dugout. I mean, he's getting a replay, isn't he, of his own incident. You can't defend that. You can't have any explanation. It's a straight red card. It's a reckless challenge. It cleans out Jacob Murphy, and Villa are going down to 10 men for what will be an entire second half. Cynical decision.
I think some will argue it's better to do that and not concede the goal, because it looked almost a certainty that Newcastle were going to get an opportunity that was going to be very, very dangerous. A situation, though, very avoidable. 3 corners back to back for Villa, and on that third one, leave themselves in a position that right at the end of this first half, normally you're so cautious. You say, let's just make sure we see this out, see the end of the half. Put themselves in a hugely difficult position now.
So Emi Martinez, who's had to do a warm-up that he wasn't expecting with very little notice, wraps the bright orange wrist strap from his gloves around his wrist, and it is Leon Bailey. I don't really want to say who's at fault for the reason that Villa are down to 10, but he slipped, Newcastle broke, and he's been replaced. Unai Emery's got a big grimace on his face, all of his teeth pretty much on display. So Emi Martinez's first action at the end of this first half. We were shown a minute of added time. We've played 3.5 minutes since the 45 were up. Newcastle have a free kick here. Sandro Tonali preparing to take it to the left of the centre circle, some way out from the Aston Villa goal. Aston Villa, who are now down to 10, to their goalkeeper Bizot being sent off. So Tonali, feet shoulder width apart, arms down by his side, now flicks the ball out towards the left-hand touchline for where Harvey Barnes can have a run around Ross Barkley. Was taken out, was he? Well, we'll never know, because the referee blows for half-time. So whatever the referee was thinking, whether he was going to give Newcastle a free kick or not, Tammy Abraham's goal has Aston Villa 1-0 up at the break here at Villa Park. Really well worked free kick from Aston Villa. Douglas Luiz clipping it up, Tammy Abraham on the chest, on the turn, and low pass Ramsdale. Newcastle have tried, without really pressuring the Aston Villa goal too much in this first half. Maybe should have been down to 10 before Aston Villa were actually down to 10. Luca Dean in on Jacob Murphy at first. That was awarded a yellow card, but a couple of minutes later, Marco Bizot, the Aston Villa goalkeeper, cleans out Jacob Ramsey, I think it was, wasn't it, on the left-hand side. And it is a straight red card shown to the Aston Villa goalkeeper. So Newcastle will have the man advantage when we come back for the second half, Rachel Corsie, but Aston Villa will have the goal advantage.
Yeah, plenty of action in that half, wasn't there? And you know, a few moments we're just looking at Newcastle players round the referee. I think they've got every right to be a little frustrated. Obviously that penalty moment as well with Lewis Hall that we've not touched on, because there's been so many other action points, and the goal that Villa do have, of course, looked like it was offside. So second 45, I imagine, has plenty more drama to come.
It certainly has been an eventful 45 minutes for two teams who are desperate to win the FA Cup this season. We have to go back to Aston Villa's goal. It was a very cleverly worked free kick. Maybe they have been discussing it with Austin McPhee on the Aston Villa set-piece coach. Douglas Luiz clipped it up almost when he was so casually walking away from the ball and away from the action. And Tammy Abraham's touch and turn is sensational.
Oh, it was a brilliant goal. You know, take away the fact he probably went just half a yard too soon. The disguise, Morgan Rogers with the big strides to say, I'm hitting this from 30 yards, and Douglas Luiz just sneaks in there. Lovely little dinked ball, not easy to do. Very often you overhit that straight to goalkeeper's hands and everyone's frustrated. But lovely little bit of disguise and execution, and great finish from Tammy Abraham. It hung in the air for a little extra second, it felt like, for us. But composed finish for someone who's not scored yet for his new club.
So second half approach, do Villa now become more conservative, and do Newcastle go for it, or do you actually not expect too much different as we get ready for the second 45 minutes?
I mean, they'll have to shift. You almost think that they potentially will become that back four as is, with Onana and Luiz in front. Barkley will maybe flatten off into that three to just a bit of extra protection centrally, and potentially Morgan Rogers comes in off this left-hand side that he does naturally anyway, and almost him and Tammy Abraham become a two instead of a more natural front three. That'll be challenging. You'd expect Newcastle then to have a large share of the ball, which for large spells in that first half anyway they had. The test will be, though, Aston Villa, very good defensively when they're in their structure. I think Newcastle have been a bit laboured in getting the ball down the sides and getting opportunities from that.
Plenty more to come then for Rachel Corsie in the second half under the clear skies of Villa Park this evening. At the break, Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 0, but Aston Villa down to 10 for the entire of the second half. As we do half-time here on 5 Sports Extra, we're going to hear from a former FA Cup winning manager, Roberto Martinez. He won the FA Cup back in 2013 with Wigan, and he's been reflecting with Kelly Summers on the Football Daily podcast about that glory from 13 years ago.
The dreams can really happen in the FA Cup. And I think that game in a final, you play in the champions of England, Man City, with all the stars. The odds are against the underdog. I think everybody likes an underdog. I always found out that we had so many neutral fans that day that you want to follow that's what happens in the FA Cup. But to actually perform and deserve to win was very special.
At what point did you think management is for me? Was it always management?
Always. Always, really? Yeah, because...
From even when you were a really young player?
Yeah, because my dad was managing. I thought that was the best...
Did you almost envisage being a manager before a player because of your dad?
Yes,
wow.
Yes, because I never saw my dad play. And it was fascinating because obviously by coming to the UK in '95, straight away they tell you there is no I in team. You have to adjust to the group and you have to do whatever it takes to be with the group. The reality doesn't work like that, it's the opposite. You have to address the I before you can create a team. And sometimes you were in the corner of a room thinking, completely different culture, different background, and you expected to perform without having a help to be settled, to feel that you are valuable. And there are many aspects that I learned from my own experience of being away from home, and without me knowing it, that was preparing me for that side that you need to get of how to get a team to together, to have the same goal and to be able to perform on the pitch.
Other than your dad, who's had the biggest influence on Roberto Martinez, the manager?
I was intrigued by Johan Cruyff, the way he managed Barcelona. He came in, he changed completely the way that the game was played. And I think many people in the last 100 years they influence the game, but I don't think nobody has influenced the game the way that Johan Cruyff did it, because it changed. It was more a technical game, it was a possession-based game, it was about a numerical advantage. And then you created the ones that they didn't follow that way of football. They had to find a way to counter play that styles. And then I followed many other managers. I think what John Toshak did when he went to Real Sociedad and then went to Real Madrid. I love Pacho Maturana, what he did with the Colombian team. Arrigo Sacchi, so just structured and rigorous and methodic. I always enjoyed how managers get their message across to the players and in a different way, all of them.
Have you ever had an opportunity to go and watch any of those managers? Like, we've spoken to Andoni Iraola, Brendan Rodgers this year, and they talked about managers that they went and kind of learnt from. Have you had anyone like that, any mentors or anything?
I was just watching games. I think I like to watch a game and I try to double guess. How did that happen? How did you take the risk to get to the player, to understand what you're trying to work? I never went to see anybody work, but I followed many World Cups. When I started managing in the Premier League in 2009, every summer with my wife, I would invite her over to go to South Africa first, and then Poland, and then Brazil, and then France. Our holidays were following the big tournaments.
So she thought she was going on a lovely exotic holiday, but she was actually going to a tournament.
I think the first time, yeah. The first time.
Then she cottoned on.
And then she knew, because I still owe her, from this day, I still owe her a nice honeymoon, because the honeymoon when we got married was South Africa, and she was delighted. She didn't realize that it was the World Cup.
You've obviously seen management from both sides as well, in terms of club management and international management. How do the two differ?
Coaching in the Premier League is about tomorrow, and it was about preparing the game that is in front of you, preparing the players that they can make a difference in winning the game. International football is about trying to find out the best talent and then to make it in a structured way to make it competitive. And you got 3 days to do that. That's very different to do it in a club level. Everything is more tactically synchronized. Everything can be more methodic. International football is about creating good mood, creating a sense of pride, creating high performance teams that they follow in their dreams, because when you represent your national team, affects your family, the neighbors. If you win, the whole country wins. When you lose, the whole country loses. It's a completely different way of enjoying the game. I was fascinated about being involved in a World Cup. That was one of my dreams as a kid. I think we all follow the first World Cup that I remember, 78, Argentina, Mario Kempes scoring in the final, then 82 was in Spain, so it was a big impact. So for me, the move to international football was just to experience a World Cup. Then I enjoyed it so much that I stayed almost 10 seasons now.
Let's discuss your time with Belgium, because what an incredible group of players you had there, the golden generation, they said. What challenges did that job bring with it, and what did you get from that period?
Well, first and foremost was to cope with that tag of golden generation.
Pressure.
Because it wasn't a pressure that the players were not used to it, because obviously you're talking about the players that they are in the most demanding dressing rooms, talking from Eden Hazard to Kevin De Bruyne, Dries Mertens, Romelu Lukaku, Axel Witsel, Vertonghen, Vermaelen, Kompany, Thibaut Courtois, Yannick Carrasco. You're talking about the generation. But I think we managed to focus on, okay, let's be as good as we can together, and let's become the golden generation. I think that was a beautiful journey to go to the World Cup in 2018. I thought we were, obviously, out of 7 games, we won 6. We only lost the semi-final against France, 1-0. There were little margins that it happens, but then we became third by winning the bronze medal in the last game. That is the moment that it became the golden generation. At that moment, it was a shift into what we could do from that point on. And that team stayed 4 years consecutively as number one ranking, and that was a very interesting time to try to get a focus of everybody having that common goal, that it was try to make history for Belgian football, and it was really, really enjoyable.
Now, I always ask in these interviews for my interviewee to tell me a game from their career, playing or managerial, that they wish they could relive.
I think if I could relive a game, would be the semi-final with Belgium against France, because we lost 1-0. I felt we were the better team. We had almost 60% possession, and it was just decided by one action, 1-0. And if it is one game that I could relive to try to change it would be that one.
Do you think about it a lot, or are you able to just park it now?
No, sometimes I like to think about it. If we were going to play it again with the same situation, what could have been done different? And that helps. I think the margins are so small. You got the best players possible of two generations, and I think you can learn from having already the experience of being in a game like that.
And you've not got a bad crop of players now at Portugal, have you? You've already won the Nations League, and what an opportunity potentially ahead for you. The pressure's going to be there again.
But it's an enjoyable pressure, because it is true, we arrived obviously in Portugal, huge tradition, always created big players through the history. Now that we celebrated the moment that Eusebio won the Ballon d'Or in 1965, you got players like Luis Figo, João Pinto, Rui Costa. It's a tradition in Portugal, but they won everything apart from the World Cup. We got an incredible commitment from the players, because this is probably a mixture of 4 generations. You got from the captain that is 40 years old to the youngest player that he arrived, that he was born the year that the captain made the debut for the national team. So we're looking forward. The first step is qualify. We did that, and I always believe that there has never been a winning team that arrives to the tournament. The winning team becomes the winning team in the tournament.
That captain, of course, is Cristiano Ronaldo. What's it like managing him?
Very easy, because his high standards, his expectations of how the work should be done, and his commitment to the game. He truly is an example of what you should do to represent Portugal and the national team. And now he's adapted, obviously, after 21 years career in the national team. He's adjusted, he's a goal scorer, he's an important player for us. And he's the player that he is now that is important for me. As a national team coach, a player that has scored 25 goals in the last 30 international games is not that he's playing because of what he's done in the past, is what he's done now.
The question everyone's asking at the moment is, how long can he go on for? As someone that's seen him close up, how long do you think he can keep playing for?
Well, we got all the stats. If you were going to analyse a player that is dropping at physical level, that's not the case. His physical stats are of a player that he could go on and on and on. I think it's more a question of when he'll feel that is the right time. I think he's a player that is very autocritical with himself. When he doesn't see that he can help the team, he'll be the one that he'll decide when to stop.
You've got 2 girls, and you're married to a Scottish lady,
yes,
is that correct?
Absolutely.
And is that from your time in Scotland?
In Motherwell, yeah, that was the best thing.
So that must be quite the culture kind of mix at home.
Especially when you are the national team coach of Portugal playing against Scotland. I think it's been 4 times now that we played with Belgium against Scotland. Obviously, with my wife, it's not a problem. It's more the in-laws. It's difficult for them to support a team that is different than Scotland. But no, that's part of the fun. I'm very, very lucky, and probably that's the biggest achievement that I want to have in my life is to be the best father that I can be and the best husband that I can be. Everything else is going to be just part of the journey.
That is Roberto Martinez, part of the football interview with Kelly Summers. You can watch that around midnight tonight on BBC One after Match of the Day, which will have highlights of what is currently Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 0 at half-time. But Aston Villa are down to 10. Marco Bizot, their goalkeeper, sent off. So what that means for the entire of half-time, Aston Villa have obviously been having their talk for Unai Emery. One man who won't hear it is Emi Martinez, who came on just for that last Newcastle free kick as the referee blew the whistle for the break. He's been doing his warm-up during the half-time interval away to our left-hand side. Newcastle down by a goal, but up by a man at advantage. Rachel Corsie, 5-time Scottish Cup winner, former Aston Villa player as well as the teams come out for the second half. Be really interesting, I think, now to see the attacking emphasis Newcastle put on with their advantage that they've got.
Yeah, and they're going to have to come out and try and get themselves back in this game with a goal. And sometimes having an extra player, that expectation doesn't always mean it's that easy to do. For Villa, they're going to have to be compact, and largely I would expect their opportunities are going to come on the break. But that's possibly something that will suit the likes of Tammy Abraham and Morgan Rogers, who may just relish that opportunity as the game maybe opens up and Newcastle have a bit more of the play.
So already through to the fifth round in the FA Cup from last night. Chelsea, who beat Hull, Wrexham, who beat Ipswich, and then today West Ham, who needed extra time to beat Burton Albion, Southampton, who needed extra time to beat Leicester, Mansfield, Mark, thank you. Players just coming out for the second half. Newcastle a man up but a goal down. Aston Villa lead, but now have to go the second 45 minutes minus a player after Marco Bizot was sent off right at the end of the first half for a reckless moment of madness, racing well out of his penalty area and taking out Jacob Murphy on a Newcastle counter-attack. Tammy Abraham's well-worked goal from a free kick of Aston Villa, lovely chest control and turn, has Villa 1-0 up, but they're going to have a big second 45 minutes here. No changes bar the goalkeeper just before half-time, with Emi Martinez replacing Leon Bailey. Newcastle trying to get on the attack almost immediately down the right-hand side and have won a corner with inside the first 15 seconds. Aston Villa, the home side, claret shirts with the sky blue sleeves, the white shorts and sky blue socks, are now left to right attacking the Hull, and how much attacking they do in the second half minus a man, we will wait and find out. Newcastle green shirts with the white shorts and green socks now have a corner in the end where the Newcastle fans are here. They've got some of the dugout stand on the far side and the top tier of the North stand away to our left. They've worked the corner short. Here's Lewis Hall, lined up for Harvey Barnes to strike, hits the back of Tammy Abraham. There are appeals of handball from the Newcastle fans. I don't think that was ever going to be the case. Seemed to strike the back of the Aston Villa striker and into the hands of Emi Martinez, who's probably playing more minutes than he ever thought he would tonight.
Yeah, and when he was asked to come on, you were saying the end of his warm-up, and I was thinking his warm-up was potentially holding on to one of those blankets that the medical staff keep a hold of for the subs in that opening period. You don't expect a goalkeeper to be used in that moment, especially so close to half-time, but I think you enjoy that as a player. You don't expect to play, you get your moment, you relish it.
He will hope for a quiet second half, whether he gets one or not. Time will tell. We'll run you through the two teams when we get the opportunity under the jet black skies of Villa Park tonight. Two classic teams in footballing history, two sides that have won this famous tournament, two sides that have produced many a memorable match, not least in the 90s, which is Aston Villa's theme for tonight. The likes of Wenger boys and Cher playing out beforehand as they warmed up. Dion Dublin's here tonight, Alan Shearer's here this evening as well to enjoy. Two famous players from back in the day as well. 2 minutes gone in the second half. Aston Villa leading by a goal to nil. Newcastle up by a player though. And Victor Lindelof winning the competition in 2024 with Manchester United will hope to be back there with Aston Villa. He plays a pass forward down the middle. Morgan Rogers comes from an offside position. Flag goes up. Offside given then from the linesman on this near side. And we don't have VAR tonight to intervene. So the final decisions are made from the match officials. Lucas Digne in the left-back position, closed out on that far side by Jacob Murphy, but with a deflection off the Newcastle player, Aston Villa have a throw-in.
Yeah, just right in front of those Newcastle fans and the far side from us, and you can see how animated they are. They know this is a huge opportunity now for their team to find a way back into the game.
There was nothing controversial about the red card. There was some slight controversy about Aston Villa's opener. Tammy Abraham seemed to have moved from an offside position when he made the run before his chest control, before the turn and shot low past Aaron Ramsdale. Alan Shearer has been speaking at half-time on Match of the Day, saying the goal should not have been given if the assistant was doing his job properly. You're asking for the assistant to do his job. It's not a difficult decision if he's looking right across the line. For 5 or 6 months, officials have been reliant on VAR, and it's coming into this situation now, and it all changes. Has he got a point?
I do think it's a decision you'd expect the official to be able to make. I do also understand the point that many of these officials have got so used to the rules and delaying the decision, because you've got that extra little bit of security in those offside moments that VAR are looking at it. And I don't know if that's just meant he's been a little slow to be up to with play. You wouldn't have thought, there was plenty of time before the free kick. Yes, everyone was caught off guard by the acting of Villa to make it all happen. I think it did look fairly straightforward though.
Aston Villa in possession, near side their right. Ball goes out of play for a Newcastle throw. So Aston Villa now have Emi Martinez in goal. He replaced Leon Bailey upon that sending off. Bogard, Lindelof, Torres and Luca Dean are the back four. Onana and Douglas Luiz in the midfield. Rodgers, Barkley and Tammy Abraham as their attacking trio. Foul given on Douglas Luiz. He goes down midway inside the Aston Villa half. Fouled from behind by Jacob Murphy. Aaron Ramsdale is Newcastle's goalkeeper this evening. The experience of Kieran Trippier at right back. Malik Chow, who scored on Tuesday night in the win over Spurs, is in centre back with Dan Burn. Lewis Hall operating as the final defender in the left back position for Newcastle. Will Asula gets a rare Newcastle start tonight. He's on the pitch alongside Tonali and Ramsey. The former Aston Villa player returning after signing for Newcastle in the summer. Villa playing their way out of their penalty area rather casually, too casually here. Ross Barkley trying to get the turn. Tonali wins the ball. It doesn't run into the path of Jacob Murphy. And Aston Villa have got to the halfway line, but Lewis Hall and Morgan Rodgers tangle unfairly. Rodgers pulls down Lewis Hall. That gives Newcastle a free kick. Murphy, Voltamada and Barnes, the rest of the Newcastle side. And here come Newcastle on the far side, the right. Lovely arcing ball in, too close to Emi Martinez, who stoops down to ground, clutches the ball at his chest and just wastes a few seconds. He will get the signal from the referee that he can't hold on for it for too long. Saw Martin de Bruyne hold on for longer than 8 seconds. That seems longer than 8 seconds. It must have been right on the periphery. Yeah,
playing with fire there, I think. He's trying to argue that Sula's right in his face, which is preventing him from restarting the play. I think he's going to be very careful. The rules have changed, and which he knows. But Martinez there just deliberately putting the referee in a position.
Aaron Ramsdale restarts play quickly for Newcastle from a long Aston Villa ball forward. His last appearance was the 3-1 second leg semi-final League Cup defeat to Manchester City a couple of weeks ago. He's only kept 1 clean sheet in 13 this season. Aaron Ramsdale won't be extending that record tonight. Lewis Hall cross from the left, it's a good one, but it's the head of Luca Dean that sees it away from the penalty area now for Aston Villa. Harvey Barnes wins it back for Newcastle, tries to go round the outside of Lamar Bogard and has dived in front of Chris Kavanagh, the referee. It is a yellow card for Newcastle's number 11, their bright player in attacking positions this year, Harvey Barnes, but that was a dim moment for the left-sided attacker for the Magpies. He goes over round the back of Bogard, no trip from the Aston Villa right back, free kick given.
Yeah, that's not great acting skills, you would say, from what we saw in the first half. Harvey Barnes there probably thought there was going to be contact, but there very clearly wasn't, and as he tried to anticipate that, he just throws himself down. Very needless.
So 7 minutes gone in the second half here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Aston Villa leading by a 0-0. The noise volume's just increased inside Villa Park. I've just had a notification from my smartwatch telling me that the decibels have gone over 90. And apparently I shouldn't be listening to it for longer than half an hour, but
oh dear.
Newcastle might do me a favour in that case if they can score, but Villa fans certainly won't want that to be the case. There's a misplaced pass from Ross Barkley, goes over the touchline. Newcastle throw near side the left, midway inside their own half. Lewis Hall, who's played left back and left midfield this season for Newcastle, starts the play-off with that throw-in. Now Kieran Trippier, he was impressive on Tuesday night in that win at Tottenham Hotspur. 35 years old, never scored in the FA Cup as Kieran Trippier, but is providing the experience in the absence of Tino Livramento, is one of many Newcastle players out for a considerable amount of time, not least to that list, most recently, Bruno Guimaraes, their influential central midfielder, out for at least 2 months with a leg injury. Barnes, left-hand side, tries to skip his way around Ross Barkley, doesn't go to ground this time, whether simulation or not. Ball gets blocked off. Barnes has to start again. Then Baltamada loses out to Morgan Rogers. The two number 27s, one in the green of Newcastle, one in the claret of Aston Villa. It is the Magpies player that comes out on top. That was a nice little battle on the edge of the centre circle. And then Kieran Trippier will chase down the right-hand side. Ball runs over the byline. Aston Villa goal kick. They're leading by a goal to nil.
Yeah, another good opportunity. A difficult ball that always arcing away from the run of Trippier and just towards the byline, which eventually goes out before he can get there. But brilliant bit of play from Baltamada. I think you just see there that at times people question his physicality. I think it's the height of him and the way he sort of saunters at times. But we see there up against Morgan Rogers, great pace, great skill, great athleticism, and then the strength to keep a hold of it. Once again, doing really well. Enjoyed seeing him today.
Header won by Jacob Murphy on the halfway line, then headed up vertically in the air by Will Asula without much direction. No one's got a real foot on the ball at the minute until Jacob Ramsey now emerges with it on the edge of the centre circle, plays it across that middle part of the pitch, gives it to Harvey Barnes. Barnes moving infield from the left-hand side, never had the angle to shoot. Tonali, the Italian, in place of Guimaraes in the midfield tonight. Gives it to Malik Chow, low ball in, Ramsey tries to take over, does it get a nick? He's appealing for a corner, screaming and pointing at the official on the far side, but there was an Aston Villa touch in there as it goes over the byline, not given, and the 10 men of Aston Villa have a goal kick, leading 1-0.
Well, I think it was a corner, and there's now been a few decisions today that Newcastle haven't quite got, but nonetheless, his play just moments before that, right in the middle of the pitch, the intensity of it, his feet work to take the ball under pressure, turn away and find a pass. Brilliant from him. You can see his quality, and he's a little bit frustrated at the moment, still probably because of that decision. His tenacity.
That descent from Jacob Ramsey's got him into the book. Yellow card shown. Villa with the long ball forward in front of the whole 10. Tammy Abraham chasing. Dan Burn on the recovery. Stops that going over the byline. Sends it out for an Aston Villa throw-in, which earns a roar of applause from the whole 10. That two-tiered stand, famous. One of the most famous stands in English football on a famous cup competition. Could be a big win this for Aston Villa, who want the FA Cup, desperate for silverware. 3 decades without a major trophy almost, and they are hungry to join that with the relative success they're having in Europe as well this season, through to the last 16 of the Europa League. Newcastle have a Champions League playoff this week, which will be live on BBC Radio 5 Live, early kick-off, 5 Live Sport on Wednesday night from 5:30 as Newcastle go to Azerbaijan to take on Karabakh, perhaps one of the surprise packages of Europe's top competition. Ball rolling across the Aston Villa 6-yard box. Martinez has to hurry it up. Pau Torres clears it away, out for a throw on the far side. That was good pressure from Newcastle. Villa invited it on themselves. Newcastle have a throw in front of their fans on the far side.
Absolutely, it was brilliant pressure from Newcastle, but from a Villa perspective, really just needlessly putting themselves under that pressure. The ball went back to Martinez awkwardly in the air, and then they tried to be cute, and in the end almost conceded a corner, did then concede a throw-in, and Newcastle now have wasted it in return.
41st game of the season for Newcastle United, competing up until a couple of weeks ago on 4 fronts till Manchester City knocked them out of the League Cup, but they have played the joint most games of any side in England this season, along with Arsenal, along with Manchester City, who progressed in the FA Cup earlier today, beating Salford by 2-0. Chelsea and Wrexham made it last night. Mansfield knocked out Burnley earlier by 2-1 at Turf Moor. West Ham needed extra time to beat Burton. Southampton needed the same to get past Leicester. Norwich beat West Brom by 3-1. Highlights tonight, 5-11, BBC One. Aston Villa have emerged with the ball across the centre circle here with Onana. Morgan Rogers is down on the floor. He's been sat down whilst the action was at the other end, but all on his own here. Onana's got to hold it up. No one's joining him in the claret of Aston Villa. He's taken it to the corner on the far side, and he's done brilliantly. He's won a free kick for Aston Villa, waves his hands up in the air at the whole 10. He had nobody around him from his own teammates there. Morgan Rogers landed awkwardly in a challenge with Dan Burn. That's why he was down. Villa, I think, wanted the play to stop, but Amadou Onana had other ideas, went to the other end and won a sided free kick.
Remarkable. I mean, he takes the ball probably from just at the edge of the centre circle in his own half and drives all the way to the far corner. Nobody really makes any ground up with him. You're thinking, can somebody get up and help? They don't. The gap just gets bigger and bigger from the rest of his team. as you say, Morgan Rogers was down. He may have been the one that typically would have got up, but I said he then bought the foul. I think it was probably very soft, but a little bit sloppy from Newcastle and allowing him to feel that contact and go down.
So 13 minutes gone in the second half. Aston Villa free kick. Out on the far left-hand side, a yard or two in for the touchline. Luca Dean will send it into the penalty area. Anana will rise for the header. Scored here against Newcastle last season in a 4-1 win for Aston Villa. Pau Torres has got his back to the rest of the penalty area. So Luca Dean is his option out on the touchline. Knocks it back towards the edge of the centre circle for Victor Lindelof. Willa Sula is on the chase. Rare start for him. 25 of his 26 Premier League appearances for Newcastle have come from the bench, but when he's played in the FA Cup, he has tended to start. Willa Sula will be at Anfield in a moment for the team news. Newcastle looking for the equaliser though, Lewis Hall left-hand side. Ross Barkley can't get his pass to Abraham, so Newcastle have won it back. It hit the heels, I think, of Sandro Tonali. Tonali out to the right-hand side of the D for Jacob Ramsey. Trippier is over there as one of 3 Newcastle players just outside the box on the right-hand side. Tonali is over as cover now as well, but it's a really poor pass beyond the legs of Trippier, who's not the tallest player, and it goes out for an Aston Villa throw in their left-back position far side. So Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 0 here as we hit the hour mark. When we're done, 8 o'clock kick-off at Anfield, where Liverpool host Brighton. Team news from Chris Coles.
Liverpool's Arne Slot said he had sleepless nights wondering what to do with his team. He's made 4 changes from victory over Sunderland. Szoboszlai back from suspension. Kirkez, Jones and Chiesa come in for Endo, Robertson, Gravenberch and Ekitike. For Brighton, 3 changes from defeat where you are, Mike. Steele, Kostulas and Howell are in for Verbruggen, Mitoma and Welbeck.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, Aston Villa beat Brighton here 4 days ago. It wasn't the classic game. Needed a bit of fortune for Aston Villa to win it. Here's Trippier as Newcastle try and get level. Big appeal of handball against Luca Dean. Referee has a decision to make. Says that it will be... Well, it's got to be a corner to Newcastle, hasn't it? If it's not a penalty kick.
He's given a free kick.
He's given a free kick.
That's incredible.
Outside the box and only just, and VAR isn't here. So VAR can't say whether it was inside the box or not. Newcastle feels strongly that that was in the box from Luca Dean. What do you say, Rachel Corsi?
I mean, he definitely wasn't standing there where the referee has just marked the white little thing that tells you where the free kick should be. I mean, Luca Dean is clearly inside the box. He's both arms up. It hits him on the elbow. But his both arms are up as he goes to protect almost his body and face from the cross. If you're given handball, you give a penalty. He's given it a free kick on the edge of the box. It's really poor from the referee. Between the referee and the linesman, you've got to get that right. That's incredible. It's about 3 yards away where they've given the free kick from when it actually strikes him.
It is the same official who's under fire from Alan Shearer at half-time on Match of the Day for not ruling out the Aston Villa goal at that end for Tammy Abraham being offside. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 0. There is a free kick, right corner of the penalty area. Luca Dean jumps. His appeal was actually my arms were tucked in as it hit the elbow and I was turning away from the ball to protect myself. That's not the argument, Luca Dean. It's a handball. The argument is, was it in or outside the penalty area? Referee and official have said outside the box. Newcastle and their fans over on that far side of the Doug Ellis stand will feel aggrieved, but Newcastle have this free kick. Kieran Trippier, the only man over it. Anthony Gordon being readied by Newcastle. In goes Trippier's ball towards the rising head of Dan Burn. Emi Martinez trying to claim it. Then Tonali finds a way for Newcastle. A long-range shot through a crowd of players and into the left-hand side of the goal. Newcastle will feel a little bit of justice has been done there, given the controversy around the free kick. Their fans are up on the advertising board celebrating. They have their equaliser. It is the 10 men of Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 1 in the 4th round of the FA Cup.
Well, Mike, that does feel like a little bit of justice has been served. It's a brilliant strike. Martinez does well in the first delivery. It's awkward. Tonali has to adjust his body, edge of the box. It's almost cushioned back. It's not cushioned back, it's sort of left. He's expecting it to be cushioned back. There's a little deflection on the way through. I think it's dug at the back side of Douglas Luiz. It comes off and it just spins past Martinez. He can't do anything about it. Brilliant strike.
It's the back of Douglas Luiz, wrong foot Emi Martinez. And that is Newcastle level with Sandro Tonali's first goal of the season. Now they're making the changes as well, Newcastle. Willa Sula has departed. Anthony Gordon is onto the field, as is Anthony Elanga. So 2 pacey players for Eddie Howe to throw on, of which he has. Anthony Elanga talking this week about the man cave he has in his house, but not full of games and a cinema. It's full of recovery apparatus to help him gain that extra 1%. Knows perhaps that he hasn't performed as well for Newcastle this season as he did for Forest last year, which warranted that big money move in the summer. But he wants to impress. He got his first goal against Manchester City a couple of weeks ago in the League Cup semi-final. And now he's on to try and turn this game around for Newcastle United, who on the road this season have struggled, but they are level. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 1, and Unai Emery is going to make some influential attacking changes as well. Emi Buendia and Ollie Watkins are coming on very shortly for Unai Emery's side. Just waiting for the board to go up. It's Tammy Abraham who had Aston Villa's goal to come off. Emi Buendia, who scored recently in Aston Villa's 2-0 win at St James's Park, onto the field. And Ollie Watkins as well, who scored the second goal in the 2-0 win in the North East. 8 goals in all competitions for him this season. He is going to replace Ross Barkley. So despite being down to 10, Aston Villa are showing no signs that they're sitting back and holding out on this one.
No, and I think sometimes that's just the energy you need. It can be difficult if you make more of a defensive or a like-for-like change. You don't quite get that reaction, the shift in momentum, and Newcastle very much in this 20 minutes that we've seen so far in the second half have dominated as you'd expect. They had to. The onus was on them to go and get a goal back. They've done that. Now it's Villa's turn. You've got to be brave. It's a cup competition. It's all or nothing. And I think you're now bringing on players that in one moment can create something magical that'll lift the fans, and sometimes the players on the pitch as well get that energy as well, and you start to play a bit more. I think Villa became a little bit too passive in terms of what they did on the ball.
So Villa free kick, they just square it across the centre circle. Villa 1, Newcastle 1. Unai Emery, arms folded. That's smart. Black jeans on with the white shirt and the black tie knotted. For the Aston Villa manager with his club winter coat on as well. Eddie Howe's got his tracksuit on. Arms folded as well for the Newcastle manager. Villa here have a throw-in by the corner flag over on the far side, their left. So Luca Dean just wraps the ball up into his claret shirt of Aston Villa with the sky blue sleeves. The Villa captain this evening, under the floodlights, clear skies in the West Midlands, launches it into the penalty area. First head on it is a Newcastle one. I think it was Jacob Ramsey. Game of head tennis going on the edge of the box. Newcastle send it out. Another Aston Villa throw.
Yeah, and just trying to keep it alive. Not the longest throw, but enough to sort of cause some problems.
If we need it, extra time and penalties an option tonight. No replays anymore at this stage of the League Cup. Short throw from Luca Dean this time. He gets it back, tries the cross, hits the back of a Newcastle player on that far side, and now maybe Newcastle try and break, but Villa have clipped it into the penalty area. Nobody there chasing it down in the claret shirt, so Aaron Ramsdale, cladded all in pink this evening, can bowl it over arm, just like England's cricketers would have done earlier today in the T20. Plenty more T20 World Cup action to come tomorrow across the 5 Sports Extra network. Still to come here on BBC Radio 5 Live tonight. Liverpool against Brighton from Anfield. If we are still playing, that game will start on Sports Extra. Voltemada, clever flick with his back heel. Tonali tries to put it on through for Harvey Barnes. Voltemada can't race to the loose ball. That will be a Newcastle throw, 5 yards from the byline, deep inside the Villa half on this near side.
Yeah, and Buendia and Douglas Luiz having a little argument there to get in each other's way, cause themselves a problem. Pau Torres sweeps it away, though does well.
No 6:06 tonight, that's tomorrow night, 6:30 with Robbie Savage and Chris Sutton. Lewis Hall's long throw in then from this left-hand side of Newcastle's near side. It is flicked onto the edge of the 6-yard box. Voltemada heads it on. Buendia volleys it away, and then it's too casual from Trippier, and Ollie Watkins is trying to emerge across the halfway line into acres of space, but the referee says he fouled Kieran Trippier in the process, and that will be a Newcastle free kick, and it has the Villa fans on their feet here.
Yeah, it is a foul, but it's a hard-mouth moment for Trippier. Knows he's in trouble. He knows Watkins is bearing down.
Lovely ball from Elanga infield to the penalty area for Murphy. Then strike is low from Anthony Gordon, hits the water bottle of Emi Martinez as it skirts past the left-hand post. That was clever play on the right-hand side for Newcastle. Ramsey low ball across. Villa were at 6s and 7s. Gordon's clean strike dragged wide of the left-hand post via deflection, corner kick.
Oh, it's close. It is so close. Lindelof initially gets it clear, but only as far as Gordon, and I think it's him that then somehow manages to flick a toe towards it that makes sure it goes by the post, but goodness me, it was tight.
Past the midway point of this second half, Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 1, BBC Radio 5 Live. Trippier has the responsibility of this corner. He just waves away. Harvey Barnes says he's not interested in the short delivery. Aston Villa player down just away from the penalty spot. Dan Burn, hands on hips. Right next is it Pau Torres marking him. They give each other a little push and a shove. Oh, there is a hand around the neck of Pau Torres. He's made the most of that, I think.
He made the most of it. I think that's one of the... Dan Burn's not intentionally trying to put his hand around his neck, but because he's probably got a few extra inches as he's lifted his hand, it's round the neck of Pau Torres.
Pau Torres, who tonight is Unai Emery's most ever used player, appearance 201 under the Spanish manager. If you missed that stat from earlier, overtaking Ever Banega. So Kieran Trippier now ready to take this corner. Anthony Gordon at the back post just wanders around the back of Emi Martinez. Trippier in-swinging delivery, more pushing and shoving in the box. It's a Villa head-on that flicks it out towards the far side. It'll be another Newcastle corner. And Dan Burn screaming at the referee. Feels that Pau Torres, well, he's got a hand around the neck. Maybe Burn makes the most of that one in return.
Oh, yeah. I think so. At one point it looks like he's almost going to end up in a headlock, but Pau Torres as well to just lift his arm away from that situation.
So corner now, far side, the right of Newcastle. So what was an in-swinging delivery from Kieran Trippier is now an out-swinging delivery from that far side. Plenty go up for it. Victor Lindelof, I think, gets the decisive clearance of Villa. Drops for Tonali on the edge of the 18-yard box. Here's Barnes. Tonali, right-footed, curling ball all the way over behind Dan Burn, behind the byline. Goal kick, Aston Villa 1-1.
Real waste there. I mean, you could argue someone should be round the back. Tonali gets his head up, and when you think about the players there, Voltemade, Dan Burn, Thiaw, all such a threat in those situations. Villa down a player, you know, you arguably can get players free. Just to see that one over everyone is very disappointing.
Two finals shared by both of these sides in the FA Cup. Aston Villa winning 2-0 in 1905 in front of over 101,000 people. And then in 1924 at Wembley, Newcastle beat Aston Villa to win the cup. Aston Villa have won it plenty of times, but not since 1957. And 5 of the 6 ties these two have had in the FA Cup, one of them has gone on to reach the final. And how their supporters, whether of claret and blue or of black and white, will hope that stat strengthens again this season. Lewis Hall across the halfway line. 1-1 the score at Villa Park under the floodlights. Harvey Barnes with a little skip in his step of his yellow boots. Hall has now joined him on this near side for Newcastle. Tonali, the midfield metronome, he's helping influence the play, just dragging the ball out to now the right hand side. Trippier goes early with the cross towards head of Gordon. It's Onana who heads it away for Aston Villa. Buendia brings it down on the floor. Watkins tries to poke it back on through to Emi Buendia, the 29-year-old Argentinian, but it's blocked off by a Newcastle leg, and now the Geordies are back in control.
Yeah, and you'd expect Villa to just do slightly better when they win the ball back, really struggling to just keep a hold of it. Virtually no combinations.
Barnes to Hall. Hall to Tonali, the green shirts of Newcastle tonight, their away kit. Chow spotted a gap, thought about lining up the shot, not once but twice. In the end, elects for Kieran Trippier out to his right hand side. Elanga tries to squeeze the ball past Emi Buendia. Villa have the bodies back, and Pau Torres sends that out for a throw in on the far side.
And it's all Newcastle, isn't it? Just wave after wave of attack. I think potentially Villa need to try and just change the momentum somehow. Very difficult though.
Newcastle fans who have the top tier of the North stand, away to our left hand side, the two-tiered stand with a small first tier, then the directors boxes, and then or the hospitality boxes, and then the second bigger tier as cross comes in from the left hand side. Gordon was trying to race in, now Trippier, far too much power on the shot, belted almost to the corner of the North stand on this near side, and it is a wasted chance for Newcastle. Saw the glory, Kieran Trippier, but it was not very well executed.
He did. Fantastic from Barnes down the left. Almost finds Gordon. Good defending from Villa. Really tight at the back post as well, and then it's Trippier following up. probably the wrong decision, you'd have to say. Plenty bodies in the box, difficult angle.
I mean, he even had the time to take a touch if he wanted, Kieran Trippier, to set himself, but he opted against it. Little over quarter of an hour remaining of the 90. Aston Villa down to 10 through their goalkeeper Marco Bizot being sent off at the end of the first half. 1. Newcastle equalising 1. Rodgers, poor touch. Lewis Hall back in control. Thomas Tuchel is watching on tonight, the England manager. He might be watching. Lewis Hall is manoeuvred to the halfway line and he's released Anthony Elanga, who slips at the crucial moment. Well, he was clear of 3 Aston Villa defenders there, Anthony Elanga. If he'd stayed on his feet, we know he's got the pace to continue those runs, but he slipped and the ball runs on through for Emi Martinez.
Remarkable, he's in. He's clean through and goal. It's a beautiful ball from Hall. Sees the run early, knows if he just sends it into the space, the momentum of Elanga's taken him clean in, and he just loses his footing as he tries to sort of arc his run into the path of the ball. Very frustrating from a Newcastle perspective.
Harvey Barnes, 14 goal involvements for him this season, looking to extend that as he just has it away from the left corner of the box. Near side for Newcastle in this second half as we look at it. Tonali sees the run of Trippier out to the right hand side and clips the ball up to him. Knocked down by the head of Luca Dean. Now Anthony Elanga takes over. Ramsey wants off Aston Villa, uses Trippier. Now Elanga sweeps the ball in from the right hand side on the turn. It's behind from Pau Torres. Another Newcastle corner.
Yeah, and asking for trouble there. You could argue balls comes in at pace. Pau Torres can guide that with instep, maybe for a throw in, give the corner, give Newcastle a chance. Players are up once again. Thiaw, Byrne.
Jadon Sancho is being looked at here by Unai Emery, as is Ian Matson. Corner to Newcastle, there's an out-swinging one. It is challenged by Barnes, but he can only flick it on rather than send it goalwards. On the edge of the 6-yard box, Dan Burn gets the first recovery. Tonali swings the ball in, controlled by Aston Villa's Douglas Luiz, but he can't get the touch he wants, and it goes out for a Newcastle United throw-in. 1-1. Feels like if there is going to be a second goal in 90 minutes, it's a Newcastle one, given that Villa are sat relatively defensively.
Yeah, they are struggling, really. That said, Martinez hasn't made a save, really, other than having to deal with a goal.
Crossing from the right-hand side over Gordon. Hall will be the Newcastle man to challenge it, but there's a Villa player to clear it away. Then Tonali from range! Oh, what a goal! Sandro Tonali puts Newcastle in front. It's a stunning strike from outside the box, arrowed like Cupid's bow on Valentine's night to the bottom left-hand corner. It's a sweet strike from the Italian, who hasn't scored all season till tonight, and now he's got 2 in one game. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 2.
Well, we thought the first one was a good strike. This one, absolutely even sweeter. No deflection here. Martinez in goal. He's got no chance. It flies into the bottom corner. It must be the best part of 30 yards. They're down the right-hand side. The ball comes into the box. It's well defended from Villa, but they don't get the ball wide enough. And Tonali's at the edge of the box. The thing is, Byrne just cushions it down to him inside. He just gets the ball out of his feet. He doesn't have a lot of time. There's Villa players coming out to pressure him, but he doesn't need a lot of time. It's a wonderful strike.
One touch, gets the pass from Dan Burn, sets himself right-footed. It's so perfect because Martinez is stretching. He has to find that gap between goalkeeper and post, and that he does, and he runs over to the Newcastle fans in the final third of the Doug Ellis stand over on the far side of the field. Let's add a huge roar of emotion, and Newcastle United from 1-0 down could be set for back-to-back away wins in a season where prior to Tuesday night they'd only had 2. They're finding their form, they're finding the consistency that Eddie Howe so desperately wants from his side.
Yeah, and it's low to the ground, just as that lovely zip off what will now be the grass will be a little bit slick and wet, and it just skips along the grass, flies in. What a finish.
Villa, in the aftermath of the Newcastle goal, have made a couple of changes. They've taken off Morgan Rogers. Newcastle with Voltemada. Lewis Hall's got space left-hand side, because they're back into Voltemada, over him and headed behind by Pau Torres. Newcastle are just coming in waves.
Oh, and it's a wicked delivery. You just think it's going to fall in Voltemada's head. It's just above him. And in the end, Pau Torres as well to sweep that away for a corner. But it's all Newcastle. Villa are really struggling to get out of their own penalty box, really. And here they are once again going after defend it from this corner.
I mentioned it in the first half. Morgan Rogers has headed straight down the tunnel here, just walked past us down low to our left-hand side. I mentioned it in the first half about the chilly West Midlands air tonight, and if there would be any tops off from the Magpie faithful, well, now there's more skin on show, celebrating the Tonali goal that has them 2-1 up. But here come Aston Villa. Long ball forward down the inside left channel, too close to Aaron Ramsdale, who reacted quickly, got off his goal line, edge of his penalty area, and he's able to gather the ball and start Newcastle off again here with Anthony Elanga down the right hand side. He fancies his pace against Luca Dean, who uses his body well, gets in between player and ball, settles for a Newcastle throw by passing it out to the advertising boards on the far side. Yeah,
it's textbook defending really, but all he can do is send out for a throw in right down in that far corner. Elanga carrying the ball, best part 60-70 yards there. You see him in full stride, electric pace, takes Newcastle back up the other end of the pitch. Off that last corner, real opportunity for Villa. Could have probably done better. The ball from Sancho just overhit. Comfortable for Ramsdale.
So, as you may have heard, just a small scattering of boos for Jacob Ramsey, the former Aston Villa player. Just looking to see what reaction he gets as he walks round the back of the goal on the north stand to our left-hand side. That is a warm applause from Aston Villa fans who certainly did boo him in his first couple of touches of the game. Joseph George Willock comes onto the pitch. If you missed it earlier, I mentioned that the team sheets tonight seem to have printed the players' names in full. So we're learning more about them than perhaps ever before. Pau Torres volleys away the Newcastle throw from deep inside his own half. Just to say, Newcastle's changes: Morgan Rogers off, Douglas Luiz off, and it's Ian Maatsen and Jadon Sancho that have come on for Aston Villa. Jadon Sancho, a German Cup winner in his time at Dortmund. In fact, the season that Dortmund won it, he was top scorer in the competition, even ahead of Erling Haaland. He'll take just one in the competition tonight if he can get Aston Villa level. Anthony Gordon weaving with the ball out towards this near side touchline. That thick mop of hair that he has, just rolls the ball under his red boots and then plays it back towards the halfway line. Newcastle look really fluid at the moment. 10 minutes to go, Villa 1, Newcastle 2.
Yeah, they do look very comfortable, just possessing the ball around the middle of the pitch, carrying so much threat. And at this moment in time, you'd think their players are thoroughly enjoying themselves. They've relaxed, plenty of touches, and that's what's difficult for Villa now. Now they need to try and get themselves back in the game. It's been so long since many of them actually completed a sequence of passing.
Ball to Willock. And you will feel aggrieved he didn't get a goal on Tuesday night in the win over Spurs. Very casual from Malik Chow, who did score against Spurs, rolling the ball under his boot, taking it past Ian Maatsen, who comes on as a sub at home tonight. He had started his previous 8 appearances at home, but Unai Emery rotating. No emotion from Villa's manager, arms folded, slick back black hair that he has. Eddie Howe pulls his zip over his chin on his puffer jacket, keeping warm in the cold air of the West Midlands tonight, where the pyrotechnics were off pre-game, certainly providing a little bit of warmth as the players walked out. Willock on the left, plays the ball off Buendia. It will be a Newcastle United throwing by the corner flag on this near left-hand side. Rachel Corson.
Yeah, and it's not done yet, you know. I think there's 10 minutes or so still to go, and you'd expect that as we get closer to 90, if it stays like this, Villa will fancy themselves to get at least one opportunity where you think it will be a good chance. Just going to try and make impact, not give Newcastle anything else, and then try and be as efficient as they can when they then get that opportunity to break.
So Lewis Hall with this throw-in from the left-hand side for Newcastle United. Dan Burners controlled that between his legs. Harvey Barnes with a snapshot. Ball ricochets away, comes to Ollie Watkins, still deep inside his own half, trying to manoeuvre to give himself a little bit of space. Luca Dean has the ball, and now it is Torres to Lindelof. Newcastle have retreated. Villa have created a little bit of time for themselves. Buendia plays the 1-2 with Lindelof. The iconic home of Aston Villa, Villa Park, witnessing a rare home defeat, although in recent games that has become a little more familiar. Everton won here, Brentford won here 2 weekends ago, after going 8 games winning here in a row on that remarkable run that Aston Villa had around the October to December time. But 2026 turn of the year hasn't quite gone to plan. Villa in possession on the edge of the Newcastle penalty area now, though. Here's Jadon Sancho, turns against Anthony Elanga. It is Sancho to strike. It flies off the boot of Malik Chow up into the whole tendon behind for an Aston Villa corner. Most positive Aston Villa have been for some time in this second half. They've got a corner, they're trailing by 2-1.
Yeah, it's a great effort. I think probably Ramsdale does have it covered. Just hit with pace. Chow doesn't take that chance, does well to get his foot in the way. Just first time Villa really have managed to have composed possession, and they go up the other end to create a chance.
In front of the Holt end, who will suck that ball into the back of the net if they can. I mentioned Villa Park, this famous old ground. Tomorrow with Colin Murray, Ipswich Town is the focus of No Place Like Home from 10 o'clock, Portman Road. In goes the corner from Villa, out swinging, Torres flicks it on. Then it's the turn of, I think, Malik Chow to help it on. Newcastle have seen it away from the box for now. Smacked away by Kieran Trippier on the volley. Didn't get much height. Not enough direction on it as well. It's Villa back in possession with the ball at the feet of Jadon Sancho. Twists and turns up against Nick Voltemade. Sancho infield from the left-hand touchline where he'd worked his way out to for Ian Maatsen. Villa 1, Newcastle 2. Villa down to 10 in this game. Buendia out to the left-hand side. The cross will go in from Luca Dean. It'll bounce at the feet of Ollie Watkins, who was quickly closed down and smothered out of it. Newcastle able to clear. I think he had more time than he thought there. Here's Buendia, tight to the byline, plays the cross in, that deflects behind off Tonali. Bit of a hero tonight for Newcastle, Sandro Tonali. Villa will settle for the corner.
Absolutely, brilliant down that left-hand side. Buendia with the run in the end, Tonali on the cover. Lovely little exchange.
So Luca Dean, out-swinging delivery, expected with the yellow boots of the French left-back of Aston Villa. Raises a right arm half in the air, out-swinging ball does go in over the head of Annan, and Newcastle, whoa, dangerous play there from a Newcastle player in the box, cornered the penalty area. Kieran Trippier's volleyed that behind into the Holt end. I don't know whether it's scuffed off his boot, but it's given Villa a really easy corner.
Yeah, that was a total miscue. The sort of thing that if you tried to do that, you'd have no chance.
And he's cushioned the volley out of play for a corner now on the near side. For Villa, they go short. Sancho, little weave towards the byline, a turn against Anthony Elanga, lays it off to Luca Dean, left-footed, scoops it up towards the back post. Header is away from Dan Burn, who resets himself and adjusts his position because Villa have it now on the left-hand side. The cross bounces in awkwardly, Dean scoops it up. Watkins won't get there. That will be a goal kick for Newcastle United, who lead with 4 minutes to go by 2-1.
Yeah, and in the end, Villa just can't create anything really. Good defending from Newcastle, very resolute in the centre of the box. Plenty height, you're going to try and work something a little bit creative, which I think we saw elements of in the first half. When you just send it in like that, you know, probably favours those tall players in the Newcastle backline.
I don't think there's any question who might claim man of the match. Sandro Tonali's got to be the leading contender of that. Still time, though, in this game for something dramatic to happen. Remember, if we're level after 90 minutes, we get 30 more, and we go to extra time and possibly penalties. Flicked on from the head of Ollie Watkins over the halfway line. Maatsen goes chasing. Trippier back to his goalkeeper, Ramsdale. Oh, heavy touch from Aaron Ramsdale. Maatsen was racing in. Ramsdale did enough, sees it out towards the far side. Villa have a throw.
Yeah, just a shift in intensity from Villa. Ian Maatsen leading the charge, closing down Ramsdale. Probably didn't expect it. Heavy touch, almost gets caught. The rest follow suit.
What Villa have done here is bide their time, haven't they? Knowing that they're a man down, they've tried to wait for the final for-all forward, but it's Newcastle with Harvey Barnes left-hand side. Touch wasn't great, he'll have to hold it up. Has Bogard with him, plays the ball off Bogard, and Aston Villa's right back can easily deal with it, although Villa haven't really advanced many yards. In fact, Bogard's just passed it, and here's Nick Voltemade to try and finish it, which he does, and Newcastle book their place in the 5th round of the FA Cup. Goals have been hard to come by for Nick Voltemade, but Villa were masters of their own downfall there, messing around with it, playing at the back. Voltemade, on his birthday, invited to shoot, sends the ball into the top left-hand corner, and that will do for Newcastle United with 2 minutes of normal time to go. Emery, grin-faced, Nick, Eddie Howe barely Flashes emotion on his face, but he knows the tie is probably done, and it is. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 3.
Oh, well, it's difficult when it comes off a mistake, but I have to say Voltemade, potential on his only his first shot of the game, his first opportunity to be in front of goal. He's on top of that mistake. Pau Torres tries to make amends, which potentially on the replay it might look as though he actually kicks it against Voltemade. Bogard gives it away, right, passes it into the middle of the penalty box, which is difficult, and yeah, as Pau Torres tries to make amends with a sliding tackle, he gets there first, and it just then collides with Voltemade as he swings to put it in the top corner. I think Voltemade's had a really solid performance. Most of his work has had to be in the middle of the pitch, slightly deeper, contributing to that part of the pitch in the game. There he was in the penalty area at the right moment, right time. Striker instincts showing through, and it's really difficult now for Villa.
Kieran Trippier's gone off behind the goal. Newcastle have made a change. Leighton will confirm that in a moment, but Nick Voltemade scores on his 24th birthday, his first goal in 14. That will do him the world of good, and Newcastle can be set for round 5. They can be set for back-to-back away wins. It's been tough on the road for those travelling Magpies supporters this season, but they have come from behind to beat 10-man Aston Villa, unless the remarkable happens. Into the final 30 seconds of the 90. Here's Ollie Watkins, slides it on through to the byline, inside right of the penalty area. Just retreating was Jadon Sancho. Now Bogard with a little manoeuvre. Sancho slides it through. The angle will be too tight for Emi Buendia, as will the muscle of Dan Burn, and the ball runs over the byline. That will be a goal kick to the visitors of Newcastle, and we're about to learn how much added time. The answer is 4 minutes.
Yeah, not too many minutes from what we've seen lately. Newcastle, I think in the second half they've been excellent. So many players contributing in a positive way, getting at players. I think Lewis Hall has been effective without being a standout. Dan Burn very resolute. Same as well with Thiaw. And in the midfield, as you say, Tonali likely going to be the person that picks up the Player of the Game award. But from a Newcastle perspective, a really solid performance, and of course Villa made it difficult. That sending off right on half-time. That said, I think Newcastle have just shown a little more today.
Yeah, Aston Villa can only be responsible for their own defeat here, down to 10. Certainly costing themselves that decisive third goal for Newcastle United. That change, by the way, Kieran Trippier off, and Alex Murphy comes on for his FA Cup debut. A year ago was scoring for Bolton in a 4-3 win over Crawley in League One when he was on loan there for the second half of last season. Now he gets his turn for Newcastle. Villa have got a little injury concern here. Emi Buendia is holding the back of his left leg. Hamstring is of concern.
Yeah, it looks that way, and it didn't really look like there was much of a collision, other than a few moments ago him and Dan Burn came together. But I don't know if that's maybe when it's happened, as he tried to make that little dart and run into the penalty box across Newcastle backline. If he's maybe just overstretched something. Obviously, of course, today came off the bench. Sometimes, as you've mentioned, it's a cold night. You've sat there, sometimes that makes you just a little susceptible. Hopefully not, but he doesn't look in that much comfort.
More and more shirts off in the Newcastle away end, split across two stands in this ground. The third of the Doug Ellis stand on the far side, and the top tier of the North stand away to our left. Plenty more skin on display. Some fans with the black and white wall paint on their face. A young Geordie fan is singing one of the club hymns as well. Aston Villa, who are already without John McGinn, Yuri Tielemans, Boubacar Kamara, could ill afford to lose Buendia. He's just holding the top of his left hamstring. Does look like he's going to come back on though. And we've got 2 minutes left. Liverpool-Brighton from 8 o'clock, that follows us. Chris Coles and Paul Robinson in place at Anfield to see if Arne Slot or Fabian Hurtzler's side can progress. Brighton knocked out Manchester United in the last round, you may remember. Newcastle here heading for round 5. Voltemade, the third goal scorer for Newcastle this evening. Plays a 1-2, and every pass now, it is that time of the match when Newcastle can feel comfortable. Their fans can play the sarcastic role of cheering on every pass.
Yeah, and we can see, I mean, looking over the far side, most Villa fans have chosen to try and get ahead of the traffic. It's difficult when you're in a cup, you know, it's knockout. Your side are likely out of it now with just a few more seconds to go.
Villa on the halfway line as Newcastle who have previously lost 10 of their last 13 away from home against Premier League opponents in the FA Cup, failing to score in 8 of the last 9, have really put that record to bed tonight. 3-1 up against Aston Villa, and we'll be watching the draw on Monday night. Incidentally, when we've got coverage of Macclesfield against Brentford as well, that's the concluding tie of this season's 4th round from Moss Rose, where Macclesfield, who knocked out holders Crystal Palace in the last round, will want to take more Premier League scalps, and plenty more could go tomorrow. Birmingham City against Leeds, Grimsby against Wolves, all available for you on 5 Live Sports, starting slightly earlier than normal because from midday, that's when Birmingham Leeds is on. Highlights tonight of the FA Cup so far: 5-11 rather on BBC One. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 3. We're dealing in seconds, not minutes. Long ball forward from Aston Villa, who are just trying to show a little bit more effort, but it'll be nothing more than that. Tonali turns the ball over in the centre circle. Buendia can't wriggle free, and now Willett will try his best, and maybe there is one last hurrah from Newcastle. Willock down the left-hand side. Bogard steps a foot in, goes behind. It would have been a corner, but we're not going to have time for that, because Newcastle United have won the game on the full-time whistle of the referee, Chris Kavanagh. Tammy Abraham's goal, controversially possibly offside, got Aston Villa in front quarter of an hour into the first half. Villa went down to 10 when Marco Bizot was sent off just before the break for a late challenge, clumsy challenge, reckless challenge on Jacob Murphy. And Newcastle in the second half, with 2 great goals from Sandro Tonali, turned it round, and Nick Voltemada on his birthday put the icing on his birthday cake. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 3.
Yeah, and it was a brilliant game, plenty of action from both halves, so I think we had a little bit of everything, didn't we? But Newcastle on the whole just had more. The sending off, of course, changed the game at half time. With that said, I think even in the first half, Villa took the lead, and then that was really all we saw them in terms of final third chances. And I think, that's always dangerous when you play Premier League opposition, and when Villa went down to 10 players, Newcastle just had impetus then to go on, ask lots of questions. Second half, their energy was excellent, got that goal back fairly early on, and you worried for Villa because you thought to change the momentum now is going to be so difficult. Tonali with 2 wonderful strikes, deserving to win any game, and of course Voltemada then icing on the cake. He had a good performance today as well. I thought he was excellent. I thought all the midfielders were excellent for Newcastle. Tough place to come here, Villa Park, despite a few results recently maybe not going Villa's way. This has been a difficult place for a very long time, and that's a brilliant result for Newcastle.
Plenty of black and white scarves now being held aloft above fans' heads. Plenty of black and white shirts on display, as well as the Newcastle players go over to thank their fans on the far side. Villa players slope off down the tunnel, knowing that they and their hunt for long-awaited silverware will go on in this competition. Still favourites for the Europa League, but they won't have a run in the FA Cup. 5 of the last 6 FA Cup ties between these two sides has resulted in one of them reaching the final. Well, if that record's to continue, at least we know it'll be Newcastle dreaming of Wembley. All Premier League affair here has finished Aston Villa 1, Newcastle 3.